The base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. I am Jason Longshore. I'm flying solo for the next couple of days, although we've got some guests to break up the monotony of just me. Kevin Egan's going to join us at 10 o'clock this morning. We're going to get into the Lionel Messi interview, which was very, very interesting on a number of different fronts. I know in the United States that the main thing that came out of this interview was he mentioned very positively the possibility of playing in the United States in Major League Soccer, and everybody is jumping to a million and one different conclusions. We will see where that goes. We'll get into that with Kevin. We'll talk about La Liga. We'll talk about what happened this weekend in the Premier League. We'll talk about Gabriel Heinze with Kevin Egan. We'll talk about Atlanta United rumors with Kevin Egan as well. But through the rest of the show, I want to take as many questions and comments from you guys who listen live as possible. So you can do that a few different ways. You can tweet at us, at Soccer Down Here. You can tweet at me directly, at Longshoe. You can follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Soccer Down Here. You can join the Twitch pitch and send your questions in there. That is pulled up in front of me as well. You can also send us an email, soccerdownhere@gmail.com, and we'll get into that. So there's a whole bunch of things to jump into today, where I wanted to start with something that people were tweeting me about as it was going on this weekend. We talk a lot about our good friend of the show, Big Sam. Big Sam pulled himself a result, didn't he? Big Sam with the big result against Liverpool. And look, it didn't go so well for Liverpool. There's really no way to spin this. It's a bad look, and now you're already starting to get the, who let Liverpool down and who was the problem for Liverpool. And of course, with Mohamed Salah saying some things lately, he was one of the targets of that. But as many of you who watched that match had to say, Big Sam did not really care about entertainment, didn't really care about your feelings, didn't really care about Liverpool's feelings, didn't care about much of anything. It was all about getting a result. And look, he pulled it off. I mean, they're in a little bit different situation. And this has to be understood when we get into this whole big conversation about results versus style. The situation of the club matters. The situation and the expectations of the club matter. Oh, Domer, don't worry. We're going to get into your boys, too. That's going to happen. I'm very disappointed in Chelsea after really propping them up in a big way on the Power Hour on Saturday, and then they went out and laid an egg. Big Sam, he takes over at West Brom. He's never had one of his teams relegated since he's taken over a team, since he's become a rescue specialist. They are right now in 19th. They've got to get to 17th. That's 5 points away at the end of the weekend. This 1 point, it doesn't hurt you by any stretch. It doesn't really do all that much for you. We talked about it with Leeds, who won over the weekend, and they had an interesting tweet about that as well. We'll get into them. Don't worry. But the 1-pointer, it doesn't help West Brom a ton here. It could give them confidence in some other upcoming matches. That's the number one thing that I think it can do. They don't have a very good team. They are desperate for every point they can find. They need to play the way they are playing. The conversations about Leeds needing to play that way didn't make a whole lot of sense because it's a club in a different situation. It's a club with a different thought process about the way the game is played. It's a club with a different manager. It's a club with different materials. They don't have to play that way, and they're probably not suited to play that way. West Brom, that's about all they can do right now. And it worked for a point here. Was it pretty? Nope. Pretty freaking ugly, to be perfectly honest. Let's go into the numbers. 78% possession for Liverpool, 22% for West Brom. They did manage 5 shots out of that. They did have more shots on target than Liverpool, 3-2. That's fairly unacceptable for Liverpool. We know how difficult it is to play against a team that plays in this way. There's no way around that. But Jurgen Klopp said some things after the match that he sounded surprised. I mean, I don't know why. It's an incredible challenge when you constantly face 10 men, and I don't think anyone can expect a team that plays like West Brom in the first half, like a 6-4 or whatever it was. To be fair, West Brom did their job inside 90 minutes. West Brom deserved the point tonight because we didn't finish the game. It is difficult to create. In the end, everyone knows and feels we should have and could have done better tonight. All totally true. All absolutely true. Liverpool had all of the ball. They had all of the opportunities. They couldn't get it done. Big Sam strutting after the match, I would assume. It was superb today, and we came out with a precious point for us. There's a lot of defending you have to do against a quality team with a fantastic home record. To the man, we frustrated Liverpool as much as we could. We had to take the sting out of them in the first half. Liverpool always take the game to you. People will say we are lucky, but that was good application from the players, and they took their opportunity at the other end. And he did say opportunity. That's a little bit of luck, by the way, Big Sam, when you're creating an opportunity and you took it. A little bit of luck, just a little bit. There's a lot of differing opinions about similar things coming out of the matches this weekend. So, Big Sam, people hated the way they played. People appreciated the result that they got. If you're not a Liverpool fan, okay. Leeds, people said they got more defensive. I think Burnley took the game to them a little bit more in the second half and pinned them back. I didn't think Leeds was trying to be defensive. They were breaking out as much as they could. People wanted to say, oh, they adjusted. No, they didn't adjust their mentality. Mentality and tactics are two different things as well. Tottenham got a very early goal. Didn't get enough after that. And Jose Mourinho wasn't happy about that. He said, we had control of the game, but we had 89 minutes to score more goals, and we didn't. And it was not just about not scoring goals. It was about not being dangerous, not being ambitious. And for me, that's the problem. Did they get too conservative? Did they not have the legs to push forward more? Were they thinking about these upcoming games? Did Jose pull them back? It doesn't sound like he did. He's saying basically he didn't. Okay. You have the Manchester United-Leicester match, which was a fun one, 2-2. Leicester came back twice to get a point at home. We're very happy about their point at home that kept them in second place at the time. Felt like maybe they should have been expecting more. I was chatting with a friend of the show, Tom Russo, during the Everton game against Sheffield United, and I had said on the Power Hour that Everton should be expecting to go in and win this game. And Tom, noted Everton fan, was saying, oh, no, we'd be happy with a point. We're missing 4 or 5 players. We're missing this. We're missing that. I'm like, Tom, you're playing the worst team in the league historically. You have to have more expectations than that. Was it pretty? No. Did they find a way to win? Yes. And that's what Carlo Ancelotti is going to be demanding out of that group. So we finished the table. We finished the weekend, and there's games today, and it's going to be a hectic next few days. We go into the week like this. Liverpool on top with 32. Everton is within 3 at 29. Leicester is at 28. Manchester United has a game in hand in 4th on 27. Tottenham 5th at 26, along with Manchester City. Aston Villa, Chelsea, Southampton, all on 25. Aston Villa has 2 games in hand. You look at the bottom end of the table. Sheffield United, 2 points. Eek. West Brom, 8. Fulham, 11. As Jarrett Smith just comes crashing into the chat.
Woohoo!
Yeah, pretty much. That's what's going to happen these next couple of days. It's going to be bonkers. West Brom's on 8. Fulham's on 11. Burnley is safe on 13. Brighton on 13 as well. Arsenal dragged themselves away from the bottom pack, at least a little bit, with a big win against Chelsea. And that's another big talking point from the weekend. You're getting a lot of talk about attitude, Jarrett. A lot of talk about mentality. A lot of talk about bouncing back. That's where we're at this point in the season in England, right?
It kind of seems like it, man.
Not much about tactics. Just a lot about attitude and energy, and we fought.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. I'm not going to lie. It's also hilarious. Like,
It can be.
we were talking last week about, man, we kind of wrote this game off for Arsenal against Chelsea, and thinking like, man, they got to take 6 points from the teams at the bottom of the table to like save Arteta's job and to like have a shot to not be in a relegation scrap over spoiled meat. And they just beat Chelsea.
Didn't see that
Never
one coming.
trust Frank Lampard, I guess.
Yeah, after we talked up Frank so much on the show on Saturday morning, and he said, I think there were clear errors in and a culmination of things that went against us in the game. The way we approached the first half on the pitch wasn't right. We've seen it a lot this season. We've seen some crazy results. A lot of teams have had some ups and downs, and at the minute, we're in a position where with out of the last 4 games, we've lost 3 of them and won 1, so that needs a reaction. So he's asking for a reaction. Should he maybe be looking at why they started off so poorly?
Maybe. I already support a team with a manager whose philosophy is just try harder if it's not working. I don't want other managers to do the same thing. If you got a game where you're thinking like, hey, this is who we are. If you've got a lead situation and this is who we are, and you get a game where you just get boat raced, you don't really usually get we got to try harder next time. Like there's hey, this is what we're gonna do. Sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's somewhere in between. I don't want to. I guess I just don't want to hear like, man, you just got to try harder next time.
Yeah, I need a little bit more. One thing before we move on from this one, the third goal from Saka, complete and utter accident, right?
That's what makes it beautiful.
Complete and utter mistake of a cross that ends up finding the back of the net. And then he tries to be like, he spins away like he did something intentional. Total luck. Total luck. But that gave him the 3. Tammy Abraham gets one in the 85th. Chelsea, this is a tough spot for a young manager without a ton of experience, because 3 losses in the last 5 overall. They won the match before this loss, but they lost back-to-back before that. What do they have coming up? Let's see. Let's look at the table. So they host Aston Villa, who is playing well. That's today at 12:30. Then they host Manchester City on January 3rd. That is not what Frank Lampard wants to see on the fixture list coming up.
Nobody really wants to see Man United right now. That's kind of like the team you don't really want anything to do with right now. Maybe later in the year, but yeah, they're
City.
The iron is hot.
They got City. They got City on the 3rd. They play Aston Villa today.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking United. Anywho, I wouldn't want to see City either.
Yeah, City's actually playing really well right now, too.
It's not really any better.
No. It's a tough situation because, I mean, I'm going back and looking, and I watched a decent bit of the Arsenal-Chelsea game. Chelsea just never really seemed like the better team, and they are the better team. You compare their rosters, they're the better team. You know, I think Arsenal haven't gotten as much as they should have based off the quality they've had, and there's questions about Mikel Arteta and why that has been the case. But Chelsea's a better team with more talent. The lineups on the day were better, and we're back to defensive issues again. You know, we're back to these problems that were there for a while and had seemed to be fixed, where you're giving up 3 goals to Arsenal, you gave up 2 to Wolves, you lost 1-0 to Everton, but you're giving up goals consistently. I mean, you've got to go to the West Ham game, which they won 3-0 on the 21st. You go back to the Champions League game against Sevilla, which ultimately didn't really matter, which was a clean sheet against Tottenham at the end of November. You're giving up goals and not looking strong defensively. And for the firepower they have, you know, Timo Werner really hasn't gotten going yet. Christian Pulisic seems like he's a sprint away from a hamstring issue again. And then it's been a lot of a mixing and matching, and you just haven't settled on anything. Is that, what do you feel like, Jared? Is that down to Lampard wanting to experiment too much? Lampard, as some people have said, maybe having too many players to choose from, which doesn't allow him to settle on anything? Or is it just a bad patch of form?
I think it's a perfect storm, honestly. Because there's talent there, and it's possible, and you never want it to happen, and it's also not necessarily likely, but it's possible to have a bunch of people in bad form at the same time. And Christian Pulisic's hamstring basically being a less severe equivalent, it feels like, of Mike Hampton's shoulder. Like, ooh, I'm always terrified as he goes out there on runs. Like, is this thing going to blow up on you?
That's not good at all.
He can have mine if he wants, because I'm not using it anymore.
I don't know if yours would fit him, Jared. You're a little tall.
That's fair. I don't know, man. I mean, it kind of feels like it is a little bit of a perfect storm of all of these things going wrong, and I know it is almost in that same room of, hey, just try harder, and it feels cliche, but sometimes you just got to ride it out, and on the other side of it, find your form, and then you'll be okay.
The thing that jumps out at me, and it was brought up in the chat, Jason Nix said Havertz and Werner haven't done anything. And you go and you look, and, I don't believe this tells you the whole story, but it's a good snapshot of where players are, the ratings that a Sofa Score or a Who Scored have, because it's all based on statistics, so you can see what kind of output you're getting from guys. When these two players, which were big-time additions, highly touted additions, are ranked 17th and 21st on your team in their ratings here and what they're producing for you. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And full credit to Bernd Dursberger, who's with us on the chat. He said that Timo Werner was not going to be a direct fit at Chelsea because of the style he played at previously. Coming in here, it wasn't going to be a smooth fit, and it hasn't been. And Havertz hasn't either. So it's a really weird situation with those two who had a lot of expectations, who just aren't producing for Chelsea, and at some point they're going to have to.
They are, and I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what you do going forward, man. I mean, do you just kind of ride this out? Do you question what the board brought in and gave you?
It's tough. There are discussions out there as well that if Frank Lampard does not get into the top four, that he will not be back next year. That feels like it might be a little bit harsh. I thought maybe his status as a legend might save him. They should get into the top four. So if they don't, something has gone wrong. They should with the talent they have. If they don't, do you think he deserves to lose his job?
Deserves is a strong word to use, but you're part of the the big six in England. If you're not in the top four with what they went out and bought you, you're going to get criticism. I don't know if you should get fired, but we'll have to see how the rest of the season plays out, I guess, to see, to kind of be able to peel back the layers of that onion and see if it was everybody just hit bad form and it was bad injury luck, this, that, and the other, and they were better in most games, or if it was like, the tactics were all wrong all season long and he just was going round peg, square hole.
Domer and Domer, correct me if I am wrong. Domer is one of our resident Chelsea fans. Talking about Werner and Havertz, he says, Timo isn't playing in his best position, and Havertz hasn't either. Havertz has been all over the front five. Why in the hell is Pulisic playing on the right? I'm taking that from Domer to mean that he thinks Frank Lampard is to blame for some of it because of the placement of these players.
That might be.
Correct.
And I would also ask the board, hey, you brought these guys in knowing what Lampard wants to do tactically.
Also true.
Or how much say does Lampard have in those guys coming in? Does he say, I want A, B, and C, and you got it A, B, and C, and he's taken the cogs out of and put them in the clock in the wrong order? Like, is this a matter of Frank Lampard got what he wanted and doesn't know how to use his toys correctly? Or is this a product of they said, hey, we just bought these expensive guys who were names and who are talented. Please make them work. Oh, they don't really fit what you want to do? Well, make it work. See what you can do. And if it doesn't work, then we'll bring in somebody else who can make it work.
You want a hot take on the Premier League?
Always.
This is from Modiflow, and I don't completely disagree, but I disagree with an element of it, at least this season. Modiflow's hot take of the morning. I know that the public in general are high on the Prem and the general unpredictability and shenanigans that happen on a weekly basis, but the EPL is a bit boring. Its saving grace are the inclusions of players that Modiflow is emotionally invested in. Generally, I would agree with that because, and we thought it would be the case this year. You know, we thought, okay, well, Liverpool and Manchester City are just so far above everybody else. It's instead of a big 4, which turned into a big 6, it's turned into a big 2. Okay, it's opened up from that this year. Maybe it's just 2020 is crazy. Maybe it's just the unpredictability of this year. But it's a compelling league table right now for me. And I'm usually not somebody who is all in on the Prem. I bounce around leagues. I've said many times I probably watch more of the Argentine league than anything outside of MLS. I was emotionally invested in the Colombian second leg of the final last night, which I hadn't followed much. So
you were waiting to see a murder, to be fair.
Well, when it got to 3-2 at halftime with a team that was 3-0 down going into the second leg, yeah, I thought things could get out of hand. You had one of the coaches sent off in the 6th minute. I mean, it was madness. Didn't get there, though. It was a really compelling second half. I get interested in matches like that as much as I do about the overall storylines of the league. But the Prem is grabbing my attention this year because of an Everton in second right now. Because of the, in or out with Ole, with Tottenham and the kinder, gentler Jose Mourinho, which maybe is going away from that now. Questions about Manchester City, because I always pay attention to Pep Guardiola teams. I have an appreciation for the way he sees the game. And then the storyline with Chelsea, with spending so much money and not getting a return yet on it. You're not quite to halfway through the season, but 8th place is not what Chelsea paid for. So I think there's a lot of compelling stories. The Prem is always going to be the league in the United States, in the English-speaking world anyway, because of that, because of the shared language. I think what we're starting to understand, and maybe some people are really slow to the take on this, the Liga MX following in the United States is huge because, again, of that shared language. And it's right there with the Premier League. But it's going to be harder for the Bundesliga, for Liga, for La Liga, for Serie A to surpass the Premier League because of the language issues, because we get all these shenanigans and storylines, and we hear Big Sam say something crazy, and we hear about Marcelo Bielsa ripping the media. You get all of the backstory out of the Premier League that you don't necessarily get out of the other leagues. But do you feel like it's overrated? Do you feel like it's, we pay too much attention to it and we should spread around? What's your take on the Prem in general?
I wouldn't call it overrated because I think it's talented. I think you've got good teams. You get good games. It's not necessarily like I'll watch it if it's like a big game. If it's on, I'll turn it on. But I feel like most years it's gonna be, aside from the odd, Leicester is the most outliers of all outliers that have ever outliered that one season.
Yeah, that one season.
But but aside from that, I feel like I can carve into granite the names of a couple teams and know that I'm pretty safe that these teams are going to be at the top duking it out. The big question is going to be how big is the gap between Team A, Team B, and Team C at the top, and maybe the battle for the last Champions League spot will be pretty fun. Relegation scraps are always fun, just because I don't know, man. Maybe it's the same thing in society that we make light of, animals fighting raccoons fighting in a back alley over a chip. It's something about relegation battles we just love. I guess it's the idea of survival. It's Hunger Games as hell with some people, but myself included. But you know, day to day, year to year, I don't really pay attention to the Prem much, and a lot of that is because I don't have an emotional investment. I never latched on to a team, so even before, even before the sport became more readily available to people in America, the other countries' leagues, we can just pull them up now and stream them like it ain't
Yeah.
no thing. Even before that, I never really had an emotional investment with a team in England, so it was kind of hard for me to, to get up and get excited about it.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because I think for most people in this country, like it was the entry point, and hopefully soon, really soon, like this season, MLS will be that entry point for most new fans, most kids who are coming up. For people in my generation, especially, as a kid, we didn't have MLS. As a kid, I didn't really have any kind of regular club soccer. We had the national team when they played, and that was the big thing. And we'd get games here and there, like not enough to really draw a connection. It was more to individual players as opposed to clubs. The Premier League was the first one that I had a chance to see on anything resembling a regular basis. So, Manchester United and that era of the class of 92 was a big deal to me. I loved that group. They got away from who they were. I think they're still trying to find it. And, it's a league that's accessible here, but as you said, there are other leagues that are becoming as accessible or maybe even more accessible. I mean, it's easier for me to pull up, and maybe it's just down to the cable system I have, or the streaming package I have. I can pull up more news and discussion on the Argentine League or on the Mexican League than I can on the Premier League. And I can pull up a whole lot more than other leagues.
You can pull up Eredivisie Serie A on ESPN Plus like it's, the flick of a wrist. And a lot of people, already have ESPN Plus kind of locked down in that respect. You can pull up a lot of different things, even English Championship if you want to get, really deep into the weeds. I'm a bit of I don't know if I'm an outlier or not. I kind of wonder if I am because, so for instance, like when I went to school, I was a minority. Like most of my school was what you would consider minority. We had, like I used to spend PE playing soccer. I was the only one, just playing pickup, and I'm terrible still. And I was terrible then, but I was the only white person there playing. I was the only one who spoke English as a first language. And I never really heard much about, nobody mentioned Premier League. They mentioned Mexican League. They mentioned Spain. A couple people mentioned Portugal. Like it was more of that. And I think it does have to do with where you grew up and what you're around and what you're exposed to. So I was exposed to that. The only English player that I ever got referenced to was I kept getting called Peter Crouch because I was 6'5" and 200 pounds.
That would do it. I think you had a little more bulk than Crouchy.
A little bit, but not nearly as graceful with my feet.
No, not at all. But here's the thing, and this is what I keep coming back to. The storylines are what sell these leagues and create the emotional connections. It's the storylines because I can watch the Eredivisie. I can see, okay, Ajax is playing. They're at the top of the table. All right, there's this good young player for PSV. I'm going to watch them. I'm not emotionally connected. I can start to try to get emotionally connected, but I have to put the work in to do that. This is a big stumbling block for MLS, and this is something that MLS has to find a way to bridge that gap. And it's something that I think has been a big part of the success story in Atlanta, is that you've had regular storylines and regular discussion because there's regular coverage. Other teams don't really have that. So it's like going to an event, not going to see your team. That's a really tough thing. England has a lot of it, and that's one reason I think NBC has been so successful with England is they have had all the pregame and postgame coverage. And that's helped because you hear oh, here we go. Jurgen Klopp's being defensive again. He's getting worked up about what somebody had to say. Oh, Big Sam's talking trash. Oh, everybody's jumping on Marcelo Bielsa. You're hearing all that. And that gives us talking points. That gives us things to look for. That gives us storylines. We need more of that in all the different leagues. If you're wanting to come into the American market, it's not just enough to come in and do some exhibition games. It's not enough to get your games on TV. You've got to have the wraparound coverage. You've got to have the additional conversation. I've paid a little more attention to La Liga this year because on Fanatis, they have the La Liga TV channel through beIN Sports. So La Liga TV will have some of the like old documentaries on different players and different teams, but they'll have talk shows in English about La Liga. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can get into some of these storylines. When there's something going on, I'll flip that on and get caught up. You need that. And that's why in this country, for MLS not to have those things, it's a huge problem because people can find it, if they want to, in other leagues. The storylines are so important to build those emotional connections. And I think that it gets left out of the discussion too much.
I would agree. I mean, it's storylines are going to be vital.
Well, you and Celtic. You and Celtic's a prime example because we've talked about it, and I've gotten sucked into it because of you talking about it. I've got the storylines from you about Neil Lennon and him being selfish and not stepping away, and now they're going to, not win a title for the first time in 27 years, it feels like. And it's okay.
9 years, but okay.
It feels like 27, Jared. We know this. Come on. But
blame
like
Rangers for that.
That's the thing. Like I would not have been at all invested in Scotland or Celtic because I would have seen it as boring. Like, okay, Celtic's going to win the title. That's what they do. They always win the title. They always win the cups. Big deal. I don't really care. But because there's a story now of, man, look at them slipping. Look at them falling apart. Wow, they look really bad right now. What's going on with all this? I've gotten sucked into it, and I will turn a Celtic game on right now to see what happens. Because I want to see what happens next.
Which I appreciate, because you're kind of hate watching it.
I'm totally hate watching it. It's not maybe not the storyline they want me to have, but it's the storyline I have, so I'm watching it.
But Champions League does this very, very well as well, and now we're getting in more of it with the Champions League shows that CBS is putting together.
Brilliant, and I've been more into that than ever before because of what CBS is doing with it.
And it's been wonderful. It's been absolutely perfect for what they need to do and for how they pitch that product. Because I mean, you're playing a slew of games Tuesday and Wednesday, like just open the fire hose and point it at your face for a couple hours Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you just have a week to build narrative and to talk. And they've handled it perfectly.
Yeah, they got a little lucky too with their first year with it, with the crazy schedule, with having it, in 2 consistent blocks where you played games and you had the international break and you came back and finished the group stage. So it was regular, and it was like, wow, this is really cool. And the Golazo show, a great way to consume it if you're not emotionally invested in a match. And you get all these little bits of things. You get these little things that draw you in. So then when you do want to watch a match, you're drawn to sitting down and watching it. And it's a big deal. Now, a big thing on the Premier League, this has been a long talking point this season, is the shift to Peacock and the shift to a streaming service. And one reason why is money, but the other reason why, and this was an article that maybe flew under the radar just a little bit late last week from Kartik Krishnaiyer at World Soccer Talk, NBC SN as a network might be going away. It could be gone in the next 12 months. And that's been the default for the Premier League on U.S. television. John Obrand of Sports Business Journal made a prediction in his predictions for 2021. He said, late in the year, think November or December, NBC will shut down its sports channel, this is next year, and move NHL and EPL programming to USA Network and Peacock. The move is part of a strategy to grow NBC's streaming service while keeping its big entertainment channel relevant in a cord-cutting world. That's USA Network. The move creates a glut of smaller programming like the car shows and dog shows and things like that will need to find a home in the media marketplace on another network or in a streaming service or what have you. Comcast bought NBC Universal in 2013. That's when the Premier League came over to NBC. They've done amazing with it and elevated the property in a big, big way. But it does make sense that NBC SN is on generally like a second tier that you have to add. It's not on your basic cable. USA Network is, first off. They'll put games on USA, but they'll drive people to give your money directly to Peacock as opposed to a cable service to get the additional NBCSN. It sounds like that's where it's headed. Do you think that's going to hurt the Premier League's reach in this country?
I don't think so, just because everyone has embraced streaming so well, and you're offering it. What is it, like $4 or $5 a month for Peacock with ads?
$5.99 with ads. I embraced, kind of griped about it a lot while embracing it. Maybe is the better way to put it.
I think the griping would go down substantially if NBC put together a better product with streaming.
See, and that goes back to those storylines, right?
Yeah, I almost want them to reach out to MLB Advanced Media.
Yes.
Who have handled a lot of that streaming stuff for other companies. But I think MLB Advanced Media, this happened a couple of years ago, I think they kind of blew apart their own team who did a lot of that because Major League Baseball has never found an idea it didn't like to destroy that was working in general. But I think enough people embrace it, and you present that option of, hey, you can. Your TV these days is a smart TV. You're going to be able to stream it. You can stream it on the go if you want to. You can go to the pub and watch it if you want to, after the pandemic, of course. Or you can pull it up on your smart TV at home and watch it. You can have multiple screens and be watching multiple things. And I think that's what they're go for. And I think if as you're presenting that to people, they're eventually just going to go, yeah, sure, fine. Here's $5, $6 a month so I can watch all of the English League.
It's going to be fascinating to see what happens. I'm glad you mentioned that because NBC will start negotiating a new EPL deal early in the summer. And that was also part of John Oran's predictions for 2021.
Ooh, imagine if they don't get... I can't imagine them losing it. But imagine if they did.
It's going to be interesting because the Premier League doesn't really care about NBC and Peacock making money. They want eyeballs. They want their property to be accessible to the most people. And I wonder what they think about this strategy that we've seen. I don't know. Oran says NBC will lock them up for another 6-year term. He thinks they'll get it back. They'll create more windows on the broadcast channel on NBC proper. They'll run games on USA Network and Peacock while keeping most matches behind a paywall on Peacock. So I guess what they would try to trade off would be not as much with NBCSN. You'd have USA Network replacing some of that, and you'd have NBC broadcast replacing for the big games, at least most of them, because you still want some on Peacock to draw people to Peacock. So, I mean, who else could come in? Like, Fox doesn't have anything right now. They've had it in the past. They have sports channels that need programming. They have Big Fox that could use the programming in the weekend mornings, potentially, especially in the spring and summer. I mean, you could get a wild card like a Amazon or somebody like that, but I don't know if anything's ready for that. It feels like Fox would be really the only one. I don't know if ESPN, outside of just wanting to gobble up everything, could give them something better outside of just cash. I mean,
CBS has a giant SEC-sized financial hole they just gained. So.
CBS?
Yeah.
Explain. I don't understand the words you were saying.
So they just gained a giant SEC-sized hole in their
financials. I thought you said FCC. I was like, wait, what did I miss on the whole thing?
No. Southeastern Conference, Vern Lundquist, Gary Danielson. Can you imagine Gary Danielson?
No.
Like talking about Marcelo Bielsa?
No, I don't want to. I don't want.
No one should.
No, Jarrett. Good grief. CBS would be fascinating. And they have a very lower tier sports channel that they're trying to do some things with, but they're focused on CBS All Access. But would they be interested in airing Premier League games in the morning? I don't know. I think this could be
That's my question.
This could be a big interesting bid.
Pump some steroids into the CBS app. Carry a game on CBS. I mean, it'd be interesting. Oh God, I just thought about them doing what they're doing with the NFL playoffs, where they're like simulcasting it on Nickelodeon to angle it at kids.
Sure.
Just them finding a way to simulcast like I don't know, like a Burnley match and angling it at kids.
No, you don't want to do that. That's child abuse, Jarrett. That's just wrong. That's horrible.
Yeah.
God.
Probably.
I think there's going to be a lot of negotiation here. It could get interesting. One other point that I think is important about the NBC side, Comcast has Sky B in the UK, and you have Sky Sports with their Premier League coverage. That's a huge help for NBC to get this again, because you could increase that synergy, and you should. And I don't know why they don't. They need to do more of that, again, for the storylines. So we will see. It's going to be very, very interesting. I don't know how long you can stick around. We've got Kevin Egan coming up in about 18 minutes. But there is a question that your assistance is much needed
what
for.
I'm getting out, so.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
That's kind of where we're trading out.
Well, Marshall Voigt has a very interesting question, and you're the perfect person for it. If you had to make an all-star lineup for an Atlanta United / Aberdeen team, what would it look like? Let me make it easier.
Jesus, what is this happening to me?
Well, I don't think this is that difficult, because, and I know some Aberdeen fans or Scottish Premiership fans are not happy about this, but Atlanta United is a bigger team than Aberdeen. They have a better lineup and roster. Am I crazy for saying that?
No.
Okay. This is not coming out of a position of dislike or disgust or anything. It's just the two leagues. It's just the two teams. It's a difference. So what Aberdeen players would be competing to get into Atlanta United's lineup? That would be the question.
Oh, Lewis Ferguson, first of all.
I like Lewis Ferguson a lot.
Lewis Ferguson, really good. He's going to be in England at some point. Where did he come from? He came from Aberdeen.
I hope he's somewhere else that starts with an A. That'd be nice.
I just don't know where you put him. Like, will you put him next to just blow up the midfield and put him next to Marcelino Moreno? He plays a similar kind of role.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, he's an 8, right? I mean, he's not a 6. He's not a 10. He's more of an attacking kind of 8.
But he can do that thing that you're asking Moreno to possibly be, which is, I want you to be an 8 who kind of explodes into the attack and can beat people on the dribble and really kind of unmake the defense.
Okay.
Also, he's got ice in his veins.
I like some Lewis Ferguson. He has been Aberdeen's best player this season, maybe one of their best players for a couple of years now.
He has Sam Cosgrove has dropped off, but Sam Cosgrove is still so physically immensely talented. If you want a hold-up striker in kind of that Adam John mold, but I think he's better than John. I don't know if that's sacrilegious or not. He's produced, and granted, it's Scotland versus MLS is not an even comparison by any means, but I think Cosgrove is a bit more well-rounded. They're both playing professionally, so they're both better than 99% of the people on the planet. So take that for what it's worth.
Cosgrove's having a little bit of a disappointing season, right?
He is.
Injuries?
You've seen the bench. It's been injuries. He was injured at the beginning of the season.
Okay.
He's seen the bench more, but he still is physically talented enough that you have to consider him. Even if you're bringing him off the bench for 30 minutes, it's like, well, now you kind of have this physical presence who can play up top, who, especially when you're playing a team like a Celtic who has a Christopher Julian, who's basically the Scottish defender equivalent of TJ Duckett, really big guy who is not nearly as tough as you would think he would be at that size. You like having that physical striker come in late, and when he was on a couple of years ago, he was great, and I thought he was ticketed for bigger and better things. He still might be. We'll see how he does with form. Johnny Hayes is back in Aberdeen, who spent some time at Celtic, and Hayes he's an older player at this point. I think he would make the bench on a joint team just because he's dynamic on the left wing, and he is fast. He does bring you a little bit of an edge, too.
The left winger that I like, that I think could push into a lineup, is Ryan Hedges. I like Ryan Hedges.
Yeah. Well, they've been splitting time. If you can get them on the field at the same time, try it. You're sacrificing something defensively, like if you push Hedges back. But Yeah, Hedges is that same kind of mold for me. Of he plays with edge, and I like it. So I want that, especially on my bench at the very least.
Yeah, he's 25. I mean, I think Hedges could. I think he could elevate his game if he moves up into higher competition. And again, the reason I'm saying this, and there's a lot of debate back and forth about the levels here. Celtic generally has been in a different conversation than the rest of Scotland because they've had European play.
Look at the money spent.
The money, but also the European play in terms of being attractive for a player to go to. Rangers has that now. It took them a while to get back to it. Aberdeen's the best of the next, and they've been consistently. And I'm talking over a period of time, not just talking like 1 year.
I was about to say, like this year, it's probably Hibernian, but
well, Aberdeen's third. I mean, they got a game in hand. They're ahead of Hibs.
Yeah,
but
they are. I just like watching Hibs play. I think they play a fun style.
But over time, it's been Celtic way ahead. It's been Rangers who has now closed that gap, and it's been Aberdeen with a sizable gap back to them, and now Hibs is pushing in. Can they maintain it? Everybody else is a step back from there. So,
yeah,
for players, like, are there individual players in Scotland who can play in MLS and do well, who can play in England and do well? Yeah, absolutely. There's players who come through and do really well.
Lewis Morgan wasn't getting time at Celtic, and he came in. He was one of the best players in Miami, and was a competitor for newcomer of the year. So yes,
yeah, there are really good, talented players there, and that's a Celtic situation. He would have been starting and been a significant factor at any other team in the league outside of Rangers. Fair?
Yeah, and he probably would have pushed folks at Rangers, because Rangers is going to play more of a style that fits what he needs, I think.
Yeah, and that's another good point, the style. So it's I think MLS has passed Scotland, and for a long time you couldn't say that. I think now they have overall. Celtic is unique, at least up until this year, in that they've had the European play, and that's been an attractive point. This goes back to the Mark McKenzie conversation. And where should he go? And should he go to Celtic? And is that good or bad for him? It sounds like there are a couple of other options. Belgium now has come in for McKenzie, the second place team currently in Belgium, KRC Hank or Genk or Genk, depending on who you want to listen to and how to pronounce it. They have targeted McKenzie, and Celtic is still in the mix there, it sounds like, along with unnamed teams in Germany and in the Premier League. McKenzie, for his development, take your fandom out. For his development, should he go to Celtic?
Oh, I think I've already made this clear. Like, he should not, especially as long as Neil Lennon is there. Like, please don't. There was a time, like when Brendan Rodgers was running Celtic, even when Ronnie Dyla was, they brought in guys like Virgil van Dijk, who they improved. What McKenzie does wouldn't fit, I don't think, to maximize his potential itself. He shouldn't go. If you had a Brendan Rodgers still there, I could absolutely see it. But I don't want McKenzie there, not out of like a bitterness or a depression, but like if I want him to develop, I want him to go somewhere else where he's going to play more with the ball at his feet, where he's going to become sharper and not just a guy who is spending 80% of his games playing on a back two while you play the rest of the game in the other team's half. He has to stop a couple of counters a game, and otherwise he's just cycling possession.
Yeah, and I'm not a longtime observer of Neil Lennon's play at Celtic, but I have watched a decent bit here lately, and it's been horrid. It's been
the amazing part is they looked good this weekend playing, and I didn't see the screenshot of that game.
Yeah,
like the weather of that game. If you missed this, and I don't blame you if you did.
Yeah, I watched about 10 minutes of it. It was some of the worst weather I've seen in a while outside of Columbus, Ohio.
It was 40 degrees, 25-mile-an-hour winds, and driving rain.
Yeah, like sideways rain.
And, well, Neil Lennon actually put in people who can play with the ball at their feet, and they were good. So
shocking.
Perish the thought.
I know, crazy.
But even if he did that, even if you bring in somebody who is going to do that, I don't begrudge McKenzie at all for going to another league where he's going to play better competition. The appeal at Celtic was you're going to be able to sharpen up, and then you'll get European chances to show off and then get sold down the road.
So it would be a stepping
like,
stone, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It is another stepping stone. And the question you ask yourself is, does he need another stepping stone? Or can he go now to play in a mid-level team in Germany? How does Belgium fit him? I don't know enough about the Belgian league, honestly, to say whether it fits him or not.
I hope he doesn't go to Celtic, and it's nothing outside of.
I agree. I agree completely. Good. I don't want him to either. Like,
I don't think it'd be a good move for him.
I hope I've made that clear. Like, in a different world, maybe, but it'd be cool as a fan to see him there. And it was the same thing. There was like a sense of giddiness, of a twisted joy when Tim Weah was on loan at Celtic, because y'all have to tune in and watch this team, watch this league now. Come suffer with me. But
I have been.
I know. But it'd be fun to see more Americans playing there. But it's not what's best for his development, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the weird place that Scotland's in. And that's why, to me, this partnership with Atlanta United and Aberdeen is really, really interesting, because they are the very solid number 3 in Scotland over time. They are the third team. But it's a big gap. Can Atlanta United's size, scouting, different things, can that elevate Aberdeen? I think those are some of the things they're looking for, and I'll be curious to see how it plays out. I mean, look, the pandemic year has probably changed a lot of trajectories, and Aberdeen has been a club that's been very transparent in what they've had to face during this time. But it sounds like they're going to come out of this okay. It looks like they're going to be all right in getting through it. But what do you think this relationship can do? What should Aberdeen be looking for out of the partnership with Atlanta United?
Scouting, players and coaches going in both directions if possible. But in tweeting with a couple Aberdeen fans in the past, I understand where they're coming from, and that they looked at John Gallagher, and John Gallagher took a leap this year. John Gallagher wasn't really there for them. I mean, he scores the goal against Rangers. He puts in some good performances.
Yeah, he played well.
They wanted more. The fans did. I think they're hoping for more, and I think that's understandable.
Yeah,
now, whether or not you're able to give them that. That's the thing is, if you want more guys, like bigger names, bigger impact guys, those guys are going to be generally fighting for time with the first team here, because that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's the key. And this gets into the Red Bull conversation a little bit, and we'll probably get into it tonight on Soccer Over There a little bit, because Dietrich Mateschitz, the owner of Red Bull, he gave an interview with an Austrian outlet talking about the whole Red Bull organization, but specifically on the soccer front. I mean, he said that the company did fine during the pandemic. Not like people stopped drinking Red Bull. I know my switch over to mate from time to time has not hurt the Red Bull company.
You're keeping them afloat. It's okay.
No, I've switched. I'm not drinking as much. My demand for Red Bull's gone down a little bit, because I'm drinking more mate than I've ever drank in my life, and I'm drinking less Red Bull. But I'm still drinking it sometimes. That watermelon Red Bull is really, really good. So I'm doing my best. But when he talked about it in their hierarchy, obviously Leipzig is number 1. Salzburg, number 2. And he said, look, it's not up to Salzburg to go far in the Champions League. He wants them to qualify, but he said if we manage to finish third in the group with the youngest team in the entire Champions League, that's good. So we can play in the Europa League and try to get as far as possible there. Then he talked about Bragantino, their new team in Brazil, and the selling point there was it was a big upgrade, especially the academy at Bragantino. Now that they have a first division team sorted out. They had a Red Bull team that it could never get over the hump to get into the first division. So now they have a first division team. They can get talent to come to Bragantino, and that opportunity gets them talent. Also, they can move that talent to Salzburg. Well, what about New York? Well, he didn't even mention New York. So that shows you a little bit about where the New York Red Bulls fit into the Red Bull organization, which is kind of a sad thing for the fans of the New York Red Bulls. But there is a hierarchy in these situations. And in Atlanta and Aberdeen situation, I understand because Aberdeen's a long, historic club that has a ton of history. Atlanta United's the bigger team of the two right now. And they're not going to send players that are going to contribute to Atlanta United over to Aberdeen and hurt Atlanta United. If they're not going to contribute to Atlanta United, then that's a possibility. And that's maybe a tough thing to swallow. But I think it's the reality, don't you?
It is right now, which is wild considering Aberdeen has, European championships. That's where Alex Ferguson cut his teeth before he goes to Manchester.
Absolutely, that's a long time ago.
But a point I'm making, it is a story history, and it's weird that it is this situation, but that's the situation at hand. Now, I would like to see guys going both directions. And I wonder if we see changes to MLS rules in the future about designated players. If we saw Atlanta, make a big splash and an injection of cash into an Aberdeen, like if you didn't have to worry about designated player salaries, how much Atlanta would possibly spend for a Lewis Ferguson to come over to MLS?
Yeah,
because I imagine he would take up a DP slot.
Probably.
And I imagine he would. I think he's rated over $2 million.
If he's in the 2 to 3, and again, that relationship probably helps you massage dollars to make it work to be a TAM kind of player. I think you could get him on a TAM deal if you wanted to.
You just don't have room for him right now in the way Atlanta United's constructed.
That's the flip side. Is I think Aberdeen wants players who are going to help them win games right now, and Atlanta United's not really in a position to give that up. They're going to give them a player like a Gallagher, Sam Williamson says George Campbell. Players on loan who are trying to prove themselves and grow into a position here. Aberdeen players who kind of graduate from that club and potentially could move on. Atlanta United should be looking at them, and Lewis Ferguson would be one.
Mm-hmm. And they could be stepping stones for each other to whatever next step they want to take. It'd be awesome to see. And then the question for me comes up of, how do you balance bringing in young guys like that versus what you've grown in your academy? Do you use it to kind of help reinforce the idea of, man, we've got somebody in the academy who's 3, 4, 5 years away that we think is going to be there, but we need something now. We're going to go shell out. By the way, he's listed on Transfer Market as like $1.75 million.
Okay, yeah, you could get him on a TAM.
He's just 19.
And that's the point.
He's way too young to be that mentally hardened in a good way, like when you watch him play.
All right. We got into some stuff I didn't really expect. This was good. Thanks for jumping in.
That's what we do.
Yeah, it does happen. Soccer over there this evening, you going to be able to contribute?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, excellent. And we'll get
the punishment
into...
The punishment will be severe, and they will be repeating.
Yeah, probably. Very, very interesting. Jarrett, thank you for the time. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk later.
Okay.
Make sure you're following him at Jarrett_Smith if you want to get all of your Scotland takes. If you have more questions about Celtic, about Aberdeen, about all of that, you can jump in and get those takes with Jarrett Smith. Hold on one second as we get back to the video. So we got to move things around. Mateo's got a lot of work to do in the background today. John is getting ready for high school football playoffs. John did leave us with a gift, a very big gift, because it is customary to talk about our good friend Steve Apolinski at 10 o'clock. And this is what John left for all of us.
Happy Monday, everybody. Soccer Down Here is brought to you by Apolinski & Associates, LLC. Once again, proud supporters of everything Soccer Down Here in the SDH network. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's only one place that you need to get in touch with, and it's Apolinski & Associates, LLC. A couple different ways that you can do it. You can do it on the World Wide Web. Go to aa-legal.com. You can hit the space bar, or the advanced bar, the task bar, whatever bar it is. It's the task bar. That's the one you hit. Large device or small, you advance it, you enter it, you return, arrow key, whatever gets you to the home page, and a pop-up window pops up at aa-legal.com, because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up 24/7, 365 and a quarter. You can get your questions answered in that way, or You can give them a phone call, 404-377-9191, get a free consultation that way, or you can shoot Steve an email directly, steve@aa-legal.com, for all your questions. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama for wrongful death and serious injury matters. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia for wrongful death and serious injury matters. There's only one place that you need to get in touch with. It's Appolinsky & Associates, LLC. And the website, Jason, is aa-legal.com. Happy Monday, everybody. Catch up with you tomorrow.
I don't think he edited those at all. I think he just read them straight out. That's hilarious. John's doing high school football. He will be busy the next 3 days, but he will be with us in spirit and with us on the live reads. Make sure you tweet at him at OSG Nelson and let him know what you thought of his first read. He's got 2 more for us. So tweet at him. Let him know so he can be very confused as he's getting ready for high school football. All right, let's get our good friend of the show, Kevin Egan, on the line as we try to connect with him. Mateo is working overtime right now. And there we go. What's up, Kevin? And we got video for you as well. Maybe Kevin can't hear us.
Jason, can you hear me?
There we go. Can you hear me?
1 second. This always does this.
Kevin needs a Mateo to do his virtual producing as he tries to figure out his audio situation. Hey, Mateo did his job, Hutcho. Mateo got Kevin. You can see Kevin. He just can't hear us. Good times. We'll get it sorted out as Kevin is looking very intent.
Hey, you got me now?
There we go. I've had you.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. People were quite entertained.
Oh, I was live?
Yeah, totally.
Good morning, everyone. How are we?
Man, welcome to Soccer Down here, Kevin. I've got a virtual producer who's trying to figure this stuff out as I'm trying to do a show.
Well, Merry Christmas, bud. How was your Christmas?
It was good. How about you?
Good, thanks. Yeah, good. Oh, well. We did a straight drive through to Wilmington, North Carolina. Oh. And Meg's parents are over there. So spent a few days there. I drove back myself just for work for these few days. And I'm going to go back and get them on New Year's Eve, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, so.
I'm sure you've had,
well, thankfully.
You've had like 5 million different jobs to take care of and plenty of stuff to talk about.
Yeah. I'm actually hosting the Premier League final show tonight with Janusz Mihalik on Sirius.
Oh, very cool. That's always a fun show.
Yeah, from 7 to 10. It's a heavy show. I just got the rundown there a few minutes ago. And there's like 85 bits of sound. You're jumping in and out of games constantly. There's several games that we'll play ourselves. So it should be fun. Janusz is great. He's a talker and he consumes so much football. So he'll be wonderful, which I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
We might talk a little bit of Premier League, but I really wanted to get into this Lionel Messi interview with you that got everybody going yesterday. And there's been a lot of talk. Alex Basine actually just jumped into the Twitch pitch, our chat room, and said that the quote translation that's been going around isn't quite how he said it about his interest in the U.S. That's what everybody zeroed in on this side of the Atlantic, is he said he'd be interested potentially in the United States, and he'd like to see what it'd be like to live here, and he mentioned the league. Do you see Lionel Messi ever playing in Major League Soccer?
I don't know. I hope so. I really hope so. I'd love to be able to take my son to see him play. I'd love to watch him play. I'd love to commentate on him. Yeah. I really hope so. It would be a dream. Messi's, 33 now? 34 in June. Yeah. So even if he came in 4 years, that guy can still ball no matter. He'll find his spaces. He'll make it happen. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a while away. I still feel he'll stay at Barcelona. I really do too. And maybe he comes to you. Maybe he doesn't go to City, and maybe he comes to the US in time. You know, when I was in Miami, when I was leaving Miami, there were all sorts of talk in the area that Messi had bought an apartment.
I've heard that.
A condo in the Porsche building. Now, I could see the Porsche building from my balcony. And our local park was called Founders Park. I lived in Aventura, Florida, and between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. And I'd go to the pitch every day. Like every morning I'd wake up and I'd just go kick a ball myself. And I was thinking, this would be Messi's local pitch. And this is a private pitch. Like, nobody really goes to the park. Nobody goes to the pitch there for whatever reason. I'd be thinking, Messi's going to show up with Mateo and Thiago some mornings to kick a ball. I might have a chance. I need to learn Spanish here. I might have a chance to say hello. But, yeah, we'll see. Miami's an option. Obviously, New York City has been linked with the City Group.
Yeah.
He's not going to certain markets. He's not going to Nashville. He's not going to Columbus. He's most likely not coming to Atlanta. Like,
no, I don't see it.
It's just, it's a big what if. Was that the biggest thing that stood out to you?
It wasn't. It was on this side of the Atlantic. I get why. All the people who follow MLS and everything, that's what they zeroed in on. I thought that was a minor element to it, to be perfectly honest. What was
the headline for you?
That I think he doesn't go to PSG or to Manchester City and he stays at Barcelona. I think he wants to fix it.
It's funny looking at the Spanish press this morning. I looking at like Mundo Deportivo is very slanted towards Catalonia and Barcelona, and their headline is "The door is left open." So it's and then of course you go across to Marca, which is more Madrid based, and it's like a disaster in Barcelona with Leo Messi. So typical Spanish press.
Yeah.
I feel that he stays. His comments about Ronald Koeman say a lot about how strong he is and the project with the younger players. I also, looking at him play, like I was watching him play against Real Valladolid the other day, and he genuinely looked really happy to be playing alongside a guy like Pedri. Yep. Pedri just thinks in a different manner to even Coutinho, even Griezmann. He links up with Pedri better than he does with those two players. He links up with Serginho Dest really well.
Yeah,
Dest has been performing brilliantly, and Messi tends to lean towards that side, obviously, anyway, and combine with Dest brilliantly. So I think he stays. I'm a bit of a sucker, and I was reading all the quotes. I don't speak Spanish. I should.
I'm working on it. I'm doing Babbel right now. I'm working on it. I'm putting in lessons every day on this.
Yeah, my wife has an app that we kind of go to every now and then and just play little games just to try and pick up little phrases. And it needs to happen for me, honestly. And I lived in Miami for 3.5 years, no excuse. So Messi, when he talked about how Antonella had hinted about him seeing a therapist and speaking about his feelings, that stood out to me because at the end of the day, you can earn hundreds of millions. You're still a human being. And that must have really got to him all summer long when you had this circus around him and his beloved Barcelona, a club that he's been with since he was 13 years of age. He spent more time in Barcelona than Rosario throughout his lifetime. So it's kind of sad and the Spanish press are ruthless. They're absolutely ruthless. Yeah. And he said that Bartomeu lied on several occasions over the course of several years. And Messi's not a public guy. So obviously he trusts this journalist and he trusts La Sexta, and he was willing to speak up. I'm a bit of a Messi fanboy. I really am. I like him a lot. I love him as a player. I seem to like him as a person from what I know of him. And I tend to defend him a little bit. But he's a human being that plays ball, that's paid handsomely for it because he's ridiculously good and arguably the best ever. So I don't know. I'm not sure. What else stood out from it that piqued your interest?
I think it's just the attitude for me. I think, and it's something that I've noticed, I've become more of a Messi fan in the last couple of years than I was before. And it's not to say I wasn't before. It's just, I think I respect him so much more now because he's starting to, the gripe has always been, and especially out of Argentina, he hasn't won the big one. He hasn't won a trophy with Argentina. He hasn't won a World Cup. He was so close in 2014, but he couldn't get them over the line. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But he's starting to show leadership qualities that we haven't really seen from him before. You would hear about Messi's power. I mean, the famous quote that Tata Martino has said that he didn't actually say to Messi about, I know you could have me sacked or whatever, something like that. Tata says he didn't say that. But we know how much power Messi has had at Barcelona. It wasn't an accident that Laporta, when he decided to move on from Ronaldinho, before Messi was even the star that he is now, after he told Ronaldinho, he went next door to Messi's house and said, you're going to be the guy, and I want to make sure you're okay with this. But now he's becoming a leader and using that power. You mentioned, playing with the young players and starting to combine. I've seen it with the Argentine national team as well. I think he understands where he is in his career. And that probably wasn't easy for him because he's not the same player he used to be. He can't be on a regular basis. He can't take over games for 90 minutes like he did at one point. But he's
How do you
still
feel about him missing
incredible.
the A-Bar game?
He's going to have to do that more. You know, he's going to have to do these things more. And I think that's a huge step for him because if you read, you know, the books on him, if you read, you know, things Pep has said about him, Pep learned early on, like, I can't sub him from games. You know, I need to give him a break. I can't sub him because he's going to be angry for 2 weeks because he got pulled out of a game. Now he's accepting of it. And maybe it's because Coleman's explained it. Maybe it's just he has a better sense of who he is and what he can do now. He can't play every match. He's got to skip games. And when he doesn't feel right, he's got to preserve himself.
I wonder, is he accepting of it? The Argentina, staying in Argentina, for those, I don't know if you touched on it earlier in your show, he's staying in Argentina a little bit longer, so he's going to miss the first game of 2020, which is against Eibar. A side that he actually scored 4 goals against back in February. So I'm sure they're absolutely thrilled that Messi's not playing. And a side that's at 1 point above the relegation zone. So I'm sure they're thrilled. But I'm not sure how I feel about it. You're also the captain of the football club. You're also there, and the optics of it don't look good. Now, you and we're never to know what exactly is going on, what the exact relationship is like with Messi and Koeman or Griezmann and the entire locker room right now. If it means that a guy who went through emotional turmoil throughout the summer and a guy who plays pretty much every game, I believe he's missed 3 games in all competitions this season, and we know the schedule. You look at the Premier League right now, like Villa and Chelsea played today, and they played 2 days ago.
It's ridiculous.
Like, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And not every squad has a squad like Chelsea where you can make 8 changes, you know? Certainly Villa don't. So it's the right thing to rest him, with the idea of staying in Argentina to extend the Christmas break. It just doesn't sit very well with me. If I'm a player on that roster, and I know we lean on Leo for leadership, it just doesn't sit well. Knowing that you're in 5th place in the league, knowing the amount of ground you have to make up to catch Atletico Madrid, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm kind of torn on it, to be honest.
I'm okay with it just because I think he's going to have to do this some. He just has to at this stage of his career.
But there's a difference between resting and not being in the same country because you're on holiday.
True. It's kind of a unique time. I don't see, just because of the makeup of his personality that he's had since he broke in, I don't see him as somebody who abuses it. You know, it's not Neymar, who supposedly had a party room like walled off so people couldn't hear 500 people in the middle of a pandemic having a party. Like, he's not Neymar.
Well, Neymar, who deliberately gets sent off in the build-up to his sister's birthday every year.
Yes. Yeah, I don't see Messi doing that. I think this is okay, and I don't think it'll be a regular thing. So we'll see. What else jumped out to you about the interview? Was there anything else that he said, whether it was Guardiola, whether it was he's not going to listen to offers when he could in January?
He's definitely not telling the truth about, how often he speaks to Pep and also when the last time he spoke to Pep. Like, he's not going to tell anybody that.
Right.
Pep and I spoke last Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about, Christmas dinner and what we're cooking. Like, no, he's not he's not going to dive into that information. I just like seeing this open element to Leo Messi. We saw a change, as you mentioned, far more leadership. There was, a few years ago, I believe it was the start of the season 2 years ago, when we saw him speak in front of the Camp Nou, and it was at the Gamper Trophy.
Yeah.
And it was Messi, the captain, and he took the microphone. And this was after the 4-0 loss to Liverpool that season, I believe. Maybe it was the loss to Roma the year before. And he spoke to the crowd, and he talked about how he was going to bring the Champions League trophy back to Barcelona. And it was a determined Messi speaking to an audience that I really hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
And that was something relatively new. So we're seeing a little bit more of that. Speaking up the way he did yesterday, he has to do now. He has to do to protect himself, given the way Bartomeu has treated Barcelona and treated him.
Yep.
Good riddance to that guy.
Oh,
and also
man.
What stood out to me was how he didn't seem to pick a side with whether it be Victor Font, whether it be Laporta, the potential candidates.
By the way,
he
kind of
did. Newspapers today that it said Gerard Piqué
yes,
for president.
I saw that.
But it was only a joke. Today is essentially April Fool's Day over in Spain. It's the Day of the Innocents, so they had a little bit of fun with that.
Yeah, I didn't see anything further from it, so I was kind of wondering, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Good times. Nothing would surprise me about Barcelona at this point, sadly. That's the crazy thing. I thought he did kind of give you a hint, though, because what he said about Xavi, he wasn't, like, oh, Xavi would be great if he came and this and that. And that's Victor Font's guy. I mean, Victor Font's saying he's going to buy season tickets for people if Xavi isn't the coach, if he wins the election. Messi seemed to back Koeman more, which Laporta's backed Ronald Koeman more. So I think he kind of showed his hand a little bit.
Yeah. No, true. We'll never truly know Leo Messi.
Yeah,
and that's an element. My mother's always saying to me, "Less is more." Leave. Don't put everything out there on Twitter. Sometimes I'll tweet something. My mom will Google my twits, as she says, and she'll get on to me and say, "Kev, less is more." You don't need to tell everybody everything you're doing in your life, and that's certainly the case with Leo Messi. Yeah. There's a mystique to him that we always want more from him.
I think he's figured out how to say a little bit more than he used to, though. He's opened up a little bit more, and I think it's worked for me, and maybe this was his intention, I don't know, just to make people feel like they're a little bit closer to him or they understand him just a little bit better. And, he felt kind of cold before. He doesn't feel that way anymore.
Yeah. No, totally agree.
Rooting for him.
Totally agree. It's been a wild Christmas given the amount of action, given the condensed calendar. Are you keeping an eye on the Premier League?
Yeah, we talked a lot about it earlier in the show. Jarrett Smith joined us. We were talking about all the games from the weekend, and one of the biggest things that jumped out to me is we did our little show on Saturday, and I was, like most people, writing off Arsenal's chances of beating Chelsea, and then you see what happens. Is Frank Lampard in trouble, in your opinion?
I don't think you can invest north of 300 million and then fire the guy. Don't forget, they went 17 games unbeaten. And that was a stretch that they were in the midst of only 4 games ago, or 5 games ago. So they're now 4 games without a win. For Lampard, the issue I had was this: if you're going to speak out after a game like that, where you perform woefully, and you totally dump it on the players, you have to expect a backlash from the players. They're human, right? So he did single out players. He absolutely did. He singled out N'Golo Kante for what he called a lazy tackle. He singled out Reece James for the concession of the penalty, taking down Tierney. He then said, "I'll take the blame publicly, but it's the players." You can't say things like that. Like, going through the years, Jurgen Klopp, when he lost 7-2 to Aston Villa, came out afterwards and said, "I take the blame." Yep. It's he said us. We take it on. Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, they would never dump on the players. Jose Mourinho has in the past. He famously did it with Luke Shaw at Manchester United.
He started to do that more. It's been crazy with Mourinho Lampard. Because he was Mourinho when, in the early days, and when Frank and John Terry and that Chelsea team, it was Mourinho always like, look at me, don't worry about the players. Like, hey, I'm going to say something crazy. I'll take all the heat. And now it's like he gets frustrated and he starts throwing guys under the bus.
Yeah, exactly. But for Lampard to do this in a game that I thought he was tactically inept, and when he says openly, and I watched the game from start to finish, and I couldn't believe how exposed they were on the flanks, right? So Arsenal played like a 4-4-1-1. Chelsea rolled out a 4-3-3. They weren't getting much work rate out of certainly Timo Werner was just like, I do side with Lampard a little bit when he talks about running, because you're looking at Werner jogging around at times thinking you've got to give a little bit more.
See, and you're a big Timo Werner guy, and he's been a disappointment.
Hugely, but I feel I think he needs a little. He's your. Now, I admittedly, like, I didn't watch the Bundesliga every single week, but every chance I could, I'd watch him, and he strikes me as someone who is a really smart player. Could use a player like Giroud. I'd love to see him start up front alongside Giroud and play 2 up front, and maybe be a bit more bold, but play him alongside a bigger guy and see how he reacts alongside. Giroud is one of the best. He's like your classic number 6. He's like your 6th man in basketball. He's that perfect player. But when you start him, you get a lot out of him. Tammy Abraham is a very good central striker as well. And I think playing a bigger guy alongside Werner was getting kicked around the place earlier on in the season when he played up front. Now out wide, he looks a little bit lost too. But he has to take a lot of the blame as well. He's a professional footballer that's earning a boatload of cash. Make something happen. But for Frank Lampard to roll out that system against Arsenal, see whether it's Bellerin and Saka on the right-hand side or it was Tierney and Martinelli on the left, I thought that the fullbacks for Chelsea were woefully exposed, and that continued throughout the game. There were other aspects to the game too, but for him to totally blame it on the players and their work rate just seemed a little bit lazy in my mind.
What do you think about Arteta? You know, I've kind of thought that if he can survive this rough period, that he's a good manager and a good fit for Arsenal, but I didn't know if he'd survive it. Now he's got a little bit of a cushion.
It's the strangest season, isn't it? Because you've got all these relatively young coaches in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Mikel Arteta, Frank Lampard. They've been going through a roller coaster season. 1 minute they're up, next minute they're down. I don't really know how to analyse this because Mikel Arteta, you win an FA Cup in August, and everybody's raving about him. They have the new Pep Guardiola, and of course his links to Pep mean that he's held in this high esteem, you know, and people really expect a lot from him. But he remained loyal. Now all of a sudden over the weekend he throws in Smith Rowe. Who's I believe still a teenager. Then he's got two 19-year-olds in Martinelli and Saka, either side of Lacazette, who I'm a big fan of. I was covering Ligue 1 when he was playing in France, and I thought he was a superb player. Puts Aubameyang on the bench, continues to have Mesut Ozil in exile. He plays Mari for his first Premier League start at the back alongside Holding. It was a different team, and it was a bold decision. He was clearly on thin ice, and he had to make changes, and he did, and it worked. Now, does he continue to leave Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who signed a bumper new contract at the start of the season? Does he leave him on the bench? I'm not sure. We'll see.
That's a tough one.
We'll see. It really is a tough one, but he had to make changes and it paid off. I have no idea, though, in terms of Mikel Arteta and his long-term future at Arsenal. The Premier League, try and predict it. I dare you, because this season has been incredibly hard. Yesterday, you've Liverpool taking on West Brom at home. They score after 6 minutes, and you're telling me that Sam Allardyce is going to get a draw out of that game?
Big Sam.
No chance. Like, insane. Like, how? And shame on Liverpool, because they didn't show up in the second half. It's a crazy season. Aston Villa, the team to watch right now.
Yeah.
And in many ways, it's been a victory for coaching with this tight schedule. Like, you see, Brendan Rodgers, for me, is an excellent coach. Always has been. Even going back to his time at Swansea and the football that they played there. At Liverpool, he brought them so close to a championship. And then look at what he's doing at Leicester, given limited finances in comparison to the traditional, say, top six. And Villa have games in hand. Like, if Villa win today, if Villa win their games in hand, they're 2 points adrift to Liverpool at the top. This was a side, and this is where I think it's worth reminding people, this is a side that stayed up on the final day of the season last year. And in one of the final games of the season last year, they played against Sheffield United. Sheffield United should have had a goal, but the goal line technology was faulty. And it didn't recognise that the ball had clearly crossed the line. Yeah. Okay? Not something that video review, I'm not sure if they can. They didn't jump in on this.
They couldn't, I think, according to the rules at the time. I think they've changed it for this season, if I remember right.
I mean, I hope they have. Yeah. Sheffield United were robbed 2 points, okay? 2 points that meant they would have gotten a European position, which meant they would have had a windfall of probably north of £30 million at the time.
Would have helped a little
bit. And they probably would have invested heavily in their squad. Now Sheffield United become the first ever team in the Premier League history to be without a win on Christmas Day. So, sliding doors moment, big time sliding doors moment. And Aston Villa flirting with a European position. They buy brilliantly. Emi Martinez is the steal of the transfer window coming across from Arsenal, the reserve goalkeeper for Arsenal. He's been the best goalkeeper in the Premier League this season. Has the most clean sheets. Looks so assured. He's safe rather than spectacular. You know, he catches the ball from crosses. He does the simple old-fashioned things that we usually don't see these days. And then, you know, around the field, Ross Barkley's been a success. Ollie Watkins has been absolutely brilliant. Grealish has upped his game. So for me, it's been fun to watch Villa. That's a team I grew up sporting as a kid because it had Irish and it had American players that I always had an interest in play for Villa. Going back through the years of whether it's Brad Guzan or Brad Friedel. Before that, Michael Bradley had a brief stint at Villa that most people forget about. He didn't really feature much. And then the Irish guys too. So I'm finally looking at Villa again, thinking you're kind of winning my heart back because you broke my heart for so long that it's fun to watch you again.
Let's get into the drama because there is some now coming with Thomas Tuchel now available. I don't know if it's been official yet out of PSG, but Fabrizio Romano reporting that they've signed their paperwork. He's going to get a £6 million or €6 million fee to leave. Maurizio Pochettino is going to come in at PSG. But there's always been talk about Tuchel going to England. And you've got Frank Lampard, maybe wobbly. You've had Arteta, wobbly. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is always wobbly for whatever reason. Where does Tuchel end up? He'll be in England next year, I think.
He'd probably love Chelsea, wouldn't he? I mean, the only issue there is you've got a tough owner to deal with in Roman Abramovich, and Tuchel does not shy away from his opinions. He is always up for a fight, always. I think he's an excellent coach. I think he's a really good tactician. I think people don't recognize what he did at PSG. Right. For me, what he did first and foremost, he changed the character of the dressing room. He brought in a guy like Ander Herrera, who's a ready-made coach. That guy is going to be a coach in years to come. Yeah. He brought in Keylor Navas, who I absolutely love, and who's a true winner. Someone who's been a winner all his life, whether it be from Saprissa to cross to Levante to finally breaking through at Real Madrid. I mean, think about it. Florentino Perez tried to get rid of him, only for a fax machine got in the way. And he wins 3 Champions Leagues in a row. He brings in Sarabia, who's an excellent midfielder. He just changed the feeling around PSG. Marquinhos became a real leader under Thomas Tuchel. They get to a Champions League final. It's not enough for the Qatari owners, Nasser Al Khalifi. It's not enough. They're third in Liga. They've lost 4 games this season. Understandably, there's concerns that they lose a home game against Manchester United. There's concerns about the team. But I do think what he did will be underrated in time at Paris. Now you bring in Pochettino. I'm fascinated by this because Pochettino will play a more attack-minded team. He will leave that defence more exposed. You look at the Tottenham teams over the years, they always played with Eriksen in behind Kane. They played with Son out wide. They played with Dele Alli on one side, potentially, or Lucas Moura. Or Lamela. They always played with 4 attackers. So PSG fans will love it because you'll get your Mbappes, your Neymars, your Di Marias, your Icardis, maybe a Moise Kean. You'll get them all in the same 11. But what's it going to do at the other end of the field? How are they going to win a Champions League against a tougher opponent like a Bayern Munich again? Yeah. I'm not sure it's the right appointment. Plus, Pochettino's never won a trophy.
Yeah, that's what you keep having to remind people because, I mean, and I love what he did at Tottenham. I love the way he sees the game. When he talks about the game, like I'm nodding my head a lot. I agree with him. But he hasn't won a trophy yet. And he's had success, but not that kind of success. At PSG, that's the only success that's acceptable.
Who would be the perfect coach for PSG? Because I'll tell you one thing, Max Allegri's available. And Max Allegri's a coach that you're looking at going. Thiago Motta was also heavily linked to former player. And we should remind people, Pochettino is a little bit of a PSG legend. I mean, he absolutely loves Paris. He played at PSG with Gabriel Heinze. So they spent time together in Paris. Pochettino, seemingly, he went to Qatar. He did the interview. He really impressed there. I don't know, though. I really don't know if he's the perfect guy for this.
It's going to be interesting. Tuchel, where he ends up, is going to be fascinating, too, because now, you've had Allegri out there, and it seems like Allegri hasn't really moved the needle in England that much. He's talked about learning English and putting the work in, but he hasn't been looming over people's shoulders. Pochettino has in some
Is it because
cases.
It's a given that you should win Serie A in the Juventus job?
Maybe it's just not the style that some people want to see. Because, Pochettino has been looming over Ole's shoulder at Manchester United from the beginning. I mean, he's been there, in the mix from the beginning, even if he hasn't really been in the mix.
I'd say Zinedine Zidane and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer have met up and had a glass of wine together, and they've just cheers to the fact that now all of a sudden Pochettino's off the market.
Yes, but now Tuchel comes in, and he was kind of starting to get into that conversation at Manchester United, and now any wobble on the results from Lampard, from Arteta, from Ole, all Tuchel's name's going to come up. Because Poch wouldn't have went to Arsenal, but Tuchel will. And he'll go to Chelsea.
Go to Arsenal.
Yeah, he'll go to Chelsea. And Poch wasn't really in that mix. Now you've got more pressure.
And Tuchel, he can ride the wave of German coaches now too. Like, Julian Nagelsmann, obviously Hansi Flick, everything, like losing one single game in 2020. Like, you having a laugh? The Marco Rosa, there's a bunch of them. Obviously Jurgen Klopp. How could I forget him? We're going through a golden age of German coaches. And Thomas Tuchel will be in demand, absolutely. Even if he is a fiery character, there's no doubt in my mind. You beat Strasbourg 4-0, and you end the game by saying, he said, quote, "I feel like more of a sports politician rather than a football coach." So clearly he is having major problems with Leonardo, the sporting director of Paris.
Yep.
Now, this always brings me back to having that chat with Frank de Boer, the interview I did with him for Atlanta United, the long form interview.
Yeah.
And he was talking about Inter Milan, and he said, you have no idea the external factors, the amount of people that you're dealing with, the amount of headaches that are created by past presidents, by agents. And I get that sense that Paris is just an absolute cauldron of problems. And there's a lot of money being pumped in, and Nasser Al-Khalifi will have to answer to his family and everyone relying. And I know a little bit about them, given my time working at beIN Sports, and they're the owners of beIN Sports too. There's a lot of people to answer to, seemingly, and then you've got the personalities of Neymar and Mbappe. You've got an awful lot to deal with, and Pochettino has been a disciplinarian over the years.
Yeah.
So he's a tough guy himself. He's not going to take any BS. I'm fascinated. Paris will become a destination now for my viewing pleasure at the weekends.
It's funny how this kind of weaves into the topic I was wanting to ask you about, because I don't know if you've said much about this. Gabriel Heinze coming to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And, we talked about, Pochettino, Heinze, there's similarities there in the way that they see the game. Heinze's been compared to Bielsa a lot. He's obviously been compared to Tata Martino. I thought he was very clear in his press conference that he's going to do what he thinks is right. Like, yes, he's studied and been influenced by others, but he's going to be his own guy. How excited are you to see him next year?
I'm absolutely buzzing. Like, for those that can't see me right now, I'm full of smiles because I'm excited again. And I'll be honest, I wasn't excited last year. I wasn't excited even the year before that, watching the team play. And I know, it just became a little bit tedious. And the way the team played, the players weren't enjoying it. You could tell. So now I want to see a guy come in kicking and screaming, but I also want to see him come in with his approach and his way. And he wasn't bowing to Tata Martino. He's not going to bow to Sir Alex Ferguson or Bielsa. He's going to do it his way. And I love that about Gabriel Heinze. And he's been like that his entire career as a player. And I'm not just saying this because I'm an Atlanta United guy. I loved him as a player. He was the guy who, I was always a fullback, really. And I was a little bit more of a robust fullback than I was never the more technical guy. And I'm not taking away from his technical game. Yeah. But he wasn't the most savvy fullback. He was the type of guy who was going to get you a clean sheet. He was the type, he'd get forward, but he'd obviously risk getting sent off in every game. He was just that hard-nosed, I'll run through a brick wall for you.
He had to work for it. It didn't come easy for him.
Nah, he had a special career. You think about the players, Jason, that he's played with. Mm-hmm. Like, you go through the list, whether it's Ronaldinho, whether it's Messi, whether it's Ronaldo, whether it's, playing for Maradona, playing for, the list of guys, like I mentioned, the Tata and Sir Alex Ferguson. He's had a remarkable career, and now he's doing it his way again. And he was in demand. So for Atlanta to go and get him and return to, hopefully, a much more attack-minded, fun-to-watch team. And people can talk all day about, you hear front foot and all these things. It's going to be fun again. It's going to be fun. They're going to move in a much more vertical way. I'm excited to see what he does with certain guys. Yeah. Like Franco Escobar, for me, is the one that I'm all eyes on because obviously he's had a little bit of a relationship. But more than that, even if they didn't know each other, Franco is Gabriel Heinze. When I see Franco's not your most savvy technical player. But he is, if you were to say, pick a player that reminds you of Franco, I would have picked Gabriel Heinze because he can play at centre-back, he can play as a full-back, he can play as a wing-back. He's going to give you lots going forward, but it's never going to look exactly right. It's never going to, like when Franco's on the ball, it never looks like he has full control of all his limbs. Do you know what I mean? He's tearing forward. He is exciting. He'll be productive. He'll score goals for you. and he does it his way, and that's Gabriel Heinze, and that's why I'm excited again. I think it's a great choice. Hopefully, he proves to be a huge success, and hopefully, we can all, get the vaccine, get back in the stadium, enjoy the games again, and just return to some level of normalcy, and he'll bring that back to us. So I'm pumped, Jason. Really excited.
I'm excited about it too, and it's not like this wild, crazy departure either in terms of mentality and the way you play. I think mentality will be more of a departure than the way you play, because that base of positional play, Tata Martino had that. He had his spin on it, but he had that. Frank de Boer had
I know
that.
you, Jason. I know you real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you. His first sentence, when he was asked about tactics, the first thing he said was, "I don't like to talk tactics. I want to talk about positional play." And I was thinking, Longshore's going to eat that up. He's going to love that.
You haven't even seen the dossier I'm working on yet. I'm getting my head around it more, because I've studied Pep a good bit, and Pep has his way of doing it. Tata had a maybe more pragmatic way of doing it. Then you've got the Dutch variant that went kind of separate from Barcelona with the Van Gaals, and that's where Frank came from. But the positioning and a lot of the concepts, maybe not at the same pace, were there. So it's not like you're coming into a team. It's not like Heinze going into Palmeiras, who was linked. And reportedly, Gabriel Heinze turned Palmeiras down. And that's a Libertadores semifinalist right now. He said
tremendous
no.
Young talent as well, guys you could really work with.
But the amount of work it would have taken when he did his analysis, and he's very Bielsa-like in this way, in that he's going to study everything about the club when they come to offer him a job. He made the decision that Atlanta was a better fit than Palmeiras, and I think a big reason why is it's going to be so much quicker to build on what's been there already. He's not going to have to explain a new soccer language to this roster. He's going to enhance it, and he's going to make some tweaks, but they're going to understand
it's a changed roster
it.
from 2018, Jason.
Yeah, but even 19, because Frank's system was a slowed-down version, a Van Gaal-esque version. But if you go back, I found a great cut, because there's been a clip, I know you've seen it from Sky, of Thierry Henry talking about what Pep Guardiola told him to do in terms of positional play. Stay wide, always wide. If you come over to the other side, I don't care if you score a goal, I'm pulling you off the field because you're breaking up the plan. Stay wide, final third, you can do what you want. But there's a longer cut of that, and he talks about how similar Guardiola and Van Gaal were up until the final third. So Frank has had that positional play element. It wasn't fast enough. Yeah. He didn't have the counter-pressing element of it at all, and that's a huge factor in Gabriel Heinze's. But the way the game was set up is actually pretty similar. So I think it'll take off quick, because it's just tweaks about the movement, it's tweaks about the pressing after you lose possession. Those are things that can be picked up fast. The positional play, the base is already there.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about this before. I had a chat with Emerson Hyman, and I was asking about what Frank wanted from him, and that changed. That really did change from 2019 to 20. Yeah. And he wanted Hyman to stay high up the field. He's like, let us get you the ball. Yeah. And when I start watching Hyman, I'm like, he's a long way away from the ball, and this is a guy who. And then in 20, without Nagby, his role changed, and he was asked to drop deeper and come and try and get it and make things happen. And I'm not sure. I'm still not sure exactly what Hyman's role is with the team, and I'm intrigued to see what Gabriel Heinze will do with him. I think one of the big things, and this is just from speaking to guys, speaking to players, there was a lack of detail with Frank compared to Tata. Tata was a coach that could change things in game, and this is when it bothers me when certain analysts in this country say, top analysts will say, well, coaches don't really change games within the game. Like a lot of the prep is done beforehand. It's like an exam. You got to go and pass the exam. Pass on my end, get an A for you. I look at just when I was in school, it was a case of, right, can I just get by and get back out and play ball? But for Gabriel Heinze, I expect that he'll be far more detail oriented, and the players love that. The players lap that up. I remember chatting with Jeff Laurentowicz about Tata's detail, and he said no one's come close in my career. He said he said Oscar Pereira has second, but it's still a big distance from the detail that we get from Tata. Mm-hmm. In speaking to some of the other coaches about Tata, it was all about his ability in game to change things. He'd sit back, he'd look at what's happening, and he'd say, "Okay, here's what we need to do." And that was, from speaking to other coaches, they'd say they were blown away by his ability to change in game.
They were so different. That's funny because Tata, one of the criticisms that I thought was unfair at times was that he didn't make a lot of subs, but he made tweaks in game.
Yeah, you don't need subs to change games, exactly.
And Frank did the opposite. Frank didn't make a lot of tweaks in games, but he made subs and changed games with subs. They come from the same general idea, but they took two completely different spins on it. And I think Heinze takes a completely different spin than both of them.
Yeah. But I expect him to be, and this maybe this is a criticism of Frank. Like I expect Heinze to be a lot more detail oriented,
absolutely,
than Frank, and in more of the Tata mold.
Yep.
Where like the study of the opposition, for example, goes into incredible detail.
Yep.
Like Jeff Laurent said to me that in that conversation, he's like, I feel like every movement's accounted for with Tata. You know, like when we lose the ball, we know exactly what we need to do. Players just want to be told what to do in the most clear and concise way possible, and then let it be drilled into their head over and over and over again. And then when they start to do it right, that's when happiness is built. That's when a positive culture is built. But if there's any form of confusion, and then there's the shouting on the training pitch, and things aren't going to go well, you know? And communication is key, and that's where I'm intrigued to see. There hasn't been any news, has there, over Christmas about his assistants? Or
Not yet. Not yet. I'm really curious to see, because I think his lead assistant at Vélez was leaving the group. At least that was talked about kind of late in the fall. Was it he wanted to go out on his own and get a first-team job himself? So that was where the Fernando Gago and Javier Mascherano conversations came up, and he's pushed those to the side. So very curious.
Can you imagine Mascherano alongside Heinze? Like, just go and bring in, I mean, like, you name it, like the list of hard-nosed, tough players, and just bring them all in.
I'm in.
All guys that can play, but I love Mascherano too as a player. Love them.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun ride. I mean, I think he's going to be able to come in, and there will be a learning curve. You know, there will be a process to getting the best out of it, but they've got the right pieces in place to do well fairly quickly. Like I've said, and I'll disagree with me or agree with me here. I think with Tata Martino, you saw year one where they got ups and downs during the year. They got better as the year went on. They were a contender going into the postseason. People, saw them as a team that could surprise people in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Year two, they were among the best teams in the league throughout, and they won trophies. That kind of trajectory is what I'm expecting for Heinze. First year, be your best at the end. Second year, be in contention to win everything.
He's got a lot of work to do with the roster. Like Carlos Bocanegra, the backroom team have a lot of work to do with the roster. That roster is not a championship winning roster.
I don't know how far off it is.
I'll disagree with you there. Even if you throw in Joseph Martinez, and even on a bad year, Joseph's going to get you, on a bad year, Joseph's going to get you 12, 13, 14 goals.
Yeah.
On a bad year. And he would have scored that last year. I just don't. You're still a ways away. I'm talking about the continuity. I'm talking about you see a team. Last year we were teased a little bit. You see the 4 goals scored in DC and you think, oh, here we go. But then you'd see a flat performance the following week. And there just didn't seem to be any continuity. And I feel that when you go into a bubble, Jason, that's when you know which group is a team. Which group can bond together? Which coach has everybody swimming in the same direction?
Who do you see come out of that bubble?
Atlanta United were woefully exposed. Yep. That they were woefully exposed. Lost every game. And you saw a team like Orlando with Oscar Pereira, where they made the final, and all of a sudden they surprised a lot of people. But that's where really good coaching and good culture, more importantly even than coaching, good positive culture comes out. And I just hope that Heinze will have everybody just fighting for him. And fighting for Atlanta, fighting for the badge again, fighting for everything that's good and positive about this football community. And that's going to make me really pumped. Like, I cannot wait to get back at it. Who knows when Major League Soccer will start? Who knows? It could be end of March, it could be early March, it could be May. Major League Soccer relies an awful lot on gate receipts, as we know. And if it means that you can put off the start of the league for an extra month because it means that we can have fans in the stand. Well, maybe they'll do that. Like, there's been no word on that, by the way.
I think it'll be early April at the latest. That's where my gut is. I don't think it'll be the first weekend in March. Although it looks like CONCACAF is going to be normal time, so it could be a really weird calendar for Atlanta United with games in late February and then.
Is that the latest that CONCACAF will go ahead as planned in February?
That's been the idea, yeah. That's been the idea. There's not a lot of wiggle room with the calendar. So, I mean, if you...
Will they do a bubble again, do you think?
I don't know. That'd be interesting if they did.
Yeah.
It's possible, but I don't think it's the intention at the moment.
That would be fantastic. If it was a bubble, for me, for Atlanta United, put all these guys in a group together with Heinze and let him work with them day in and day out. Mm-hmm. I think that would be fantastic news for Atlanta United.
That's the difference. That's where it gets really, really interesting. We could keep going for like 2 hours, but I mean, you have like other 5 different jobs to do, don't you?
You know, I really do.
Does that catch you on a good day?
Says different jobs, but like in terms of time, this is where I'm really lucky right now. Plus, my wife and my son are in Wilmington, so I am all of a sudden on my Toblerone. I'm on my own here, and I'm gonna go discover a new hike today. I've been trying to find as many little hikes and runs as possible. Meg is pregnant, so we're expecting our second baby. So we haven't been going too far on the hikes.
Yeah.
But now that I'm by myself, I'm going to see if I can check out a new hike and then get back and watch the Chelsea-Aston Villa game at 12:30.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. Thanks for the time, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. Absolute pleasure. This has been fun. I need to find out how to get on the Twitch pitch because I know nothing about Twitch.
Yeah. Twitch has been a good thing for us at SDH. It's created like a little community, and people are now asking, and I'll ask you to finish it off, who would be starting in your midfield? Gattuso, Mascherano, or Vieira? You can pick one of them. Who do you get? That's from Kefsi.
Gattuso, Mascherano, or Vieira.
I'm going Javier Mascherano, but my affinity for the Argentines.
It absolutely depends on who is next. And I know I don't mean to sound like really annoying here.
Who are you going to pick to build your team around? So you get to. This is your first pick.
I have to say, I'd probably, out of those 3, I'd probably have Mascherano last.
Oh.
I would, honestly. Love him. No, I might pick Vieira first. But it depends what you have. Like, Vieira's not going to give you the shield that say, Gattuso gave for Pirlo, because Vieira's going to go a little bit more. Whereas Gattuso nearly turned Pirlo into the trequartista that he was, or regista, I'm using the wrong Italian term, into that like deeper lying quarterback nearly, like he was never a defensive midfielder. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this. I would say, that's a tough one. I love these games though. I could play these games all day. Is Busquets not an option? No.
Oh no, you can go off the board and go Busquets. That's a good call.
Busquets. Busquets at his peak, hands down, over any of them.
See, I'm going to go Mascherano first. I might go Busquets second, but I'm going to go Mascherano.
You go Mascherano ahead of Busquets?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
Why?
I could play him by himself. I could go with one behind 2. I could get 2 more attacking midfielders. Mascherano can clean everything up behind him. I can even slot him into the back line if I have to.
That's where Busquets' defensive ability is totally underrated.
It is.
At his peak now. He's not at his peak anymore, which is nearly a sad sight at times.
Yeah, it is.
But his decline has been there for all to see. And especially, not to go off on another tangent, but Ronald Koeman is playing a much more offensive system. It's not the same system. He's playing with a 2 in midfield rather than a 3. Like, because you're not going to play Messi or Coutinho or one of these guys in midfield. He's pushing them forward. And you've got Busquets alongside, maybe it's Frankie de Jong, maybe it's Pedri at times, and he just looks a little bit more exposed.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah, those rangy defensive legs were his biggest defensive trait for me was always breaking up counterattacks.
Yep.
He had this incredible ability to read a counterattack and step at the right point. If you had to buy or bring in one position for Atlanta United, is it that position?
It's that position. Yeah, it is. There's no question, because I don't know if the system works without that position being not perfect, but among your most important players. And you've got players who can play it now. I mean, Eric Remedi has played that position. He's sat. I mean, Heinze generally wants one behind two. He generally wants he'll call it a 5. It's a 6 in Europe. Yeah. He wants that position to be able to play by themselves. Remedi's done that. He hasn't done that very well over the last couple of years. Mo Adams did that kind of at the end of the season, but is he ready for a big step up in responsibility? I don't know. Hindman, Hosetu have played with a partner there. I wonder about Hosetu kind of turning into that kind of player. I think he has some of the raw characteristics. I don't know if that's going to be ready to count on to be a winning team right now. You're going to have to work with it.
You just touched on something that I think is very interesting. So sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's all good.
Mateus Hosetu is a fascinating one for me because I think he's the most talented ball player in the roster.
Yeah.
I think he's the most gifted
technical
player. Yeah, he's silky smooth, but I think he needs a coach like Heinze. He needs someone to just get on him and I don't know Mateus Hosetu at all. I've never met him, but he seems very nice. He seems like a really nice guy, and he seems a little like I want to see Mateus Hosetu get booked. I want to see him lunge in and have VAR have to check to see if it's a red card.
I think we saw one kind of nasty tackle from
angry
him.
Jason, and that side of him that. We always go back to he came from a ridiculously talented side in Atletico Paranaense, and he came from a midfield where he would play when Lucho Gonzalez was there, Guimaraes was there, who's now at Lyon. Like he had to compete with these guys. It's there, it's there. There's a reason Atlanta United brought him in. I've talked to a couple of Brazilian folks that have questions about him, and maybe it's a bit of that because his technical side is there. He's a gifted player. But I want to see him mature into a winner, a real winner in every aspect, and a leader, and someone who's going to talk a bit more, someone who's going to get used to living here in Atlanta, and just have that great amount of desire. It sounds so simple, but maybe a guy like Heinze is the type of guy to light a fire under Mateus Hosetu, and he could be that guy.
He's my wild card in that position.
Yeah, wouldn't it be strange to see a 9 playing that role?
That'd be funny. He'd have to change his number. I think that'd be one thing that Heinze would probably make him do. It's like, you can't wear number 9 and play this role. No,
I agree with that completely. Otherwise, I don't think the player exists.
Yeah,
right now, a starter in that position. You've got guys around the league that can play that are silky smooth on the ball, like Jimenez at Chicago.
And he played for him before. Yeah, he played that role for Heinze.
Oh, he did.
He did at Vélez. Yeah, he absolutely played that role for him. He was vital in that role. It was him and it was Gago. Those were at Gago at the end of his career. Those were the main 2 players he had in that role.
I didn't realize he played for Heinze. Well, I was just thinking of him because you see him play for Paraguay, and he's a good player. He can pick out a pass. He can be tough in the challenge and read the game well. It's very hard to find somebody. Like Darlington Nagbe doesn't exist within the league aside from that. He just doesn't. The one player, it's funny, the one player who I've always compared to Nagbe for his characteristics has been Modric. And I think Luka Modric is a specialist at turning defense into attack. He's a specialist at game management. When the game needs to be slowed down, he slows it down. When it needs to move, he moves. And he is just he's remarkable in that way, as is Nagbe. So when Luka Modric was linked with Major League Soccer, I was thinking, I wonder would Atlanta United go for a big splash? He's 35, but he's the type of guy who is so lean. He's going to play until he's 38, 39, and play well. But I don't see it as a realistic option.
No, I don't either. One last question. Matt Wagner on the Twitch pitch talking about 6s. Agustin Almendra from Boca is a name that's come up. He's been linked to Atlanta. Reportedly, Heinze's wanted him. You know much about him? Have you followed much of him? Yeah,
like I've seen him play a little bit. He strikes me as a little bit raw. Mm-hmm. He looks powerful. Like he looks like a big boy. Like in the same way, like we mentioned Patrick Vieira, just a little bit more of a presence. Can certainly pick out a pass.
Yep.
I haven't seen enough of him in tight spaces to be totally convinced that he is a player to really meander out of traffic. I don't know enough. When I've seen him play, he seems like he wants to get on the ball and run at times.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the player Atlanta United need. He may play more as an 8,
right,
and can play that role. But I don't know if that sort of bullish. He strikes me as more of a bullish player. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Am I right or wrong? What do you think?
No, I'm with you. I mean, Some have said he's a lot like a young Riquelme, and that Riquelme started in a deeper position and then moved into that number 10 role.
It's the highest praise you could possibly throw at a guy.
That's what people have compared him to skill-wise. They call him like a young Riquelme, but I think he's probably more defensive. I don't see him as a 10 down the road. Maybe an 8, but can he play as a 6?
So maybe I'm missing something. I definitely didn't see a young Riquelme. But I haven't seen a whole lot of him. So if I get a chance to watch Boca, I will.
But he hasn't played, and that's the hardest thing about it. And that's probably my biggest question is he hasn't played under Russo. He hasn't played in a match since November of 19. He just came back into the team training. There was a big falling out with Russo, and then when teams returned to training after the lockdowns in Argentina, he didn't want to come back. Then he tested positive. Then he didn't want to come back after getting cleared, and he's just come back in the last couple of weeks. So it's a really odd situation.
Yeah. Oh, time will tell, but I hope that they can make some moves that the team needs. I'm hoping to see more. I liked what I saw from Lopez.
I did too.
He looks like an interesting proposition.
And now you've got a Costa Rican linked, too, a young player from Alajuelense. I don't know if you saw that rumor from over the weekend.
Yeah, pictured in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, his representation is based in Atlanta, one thing that I did learn. So, maybe, but it was reported pretty clearly by Fabian Bourbon of Teletica Deportes that he was leaving to come to Atlanta for a medical. It'd be on loan with an option to buy. He's played over 70 games as a 20-year-old in the first division in Costa Rica. Like, this isn't like a young kid who's inexperienced. He's been out on loan with Alajuelense to other teams and been a big factor in smaller teams and scored 6 goals in 20 games this year for a team that won the Costa Rican title. It's an interesting guy.
He's an out-and-out 9, right?
He can play on the left a little bit, and I think the way that you could see this play, having a 9 or an attacker like him, like Lopez, who can play in wide positions as well and stretch the field, could be really useful. So it's interesting. I don't know. I was a little surprised when the rumor popped up because I didn't think it was a position of real need, but loan with an option to buy, a promising 20-year-old who's talked about going to Europe, not a bad get.
Yeah. Here's hoping. Exciting times ahead. But while I'm on, I just hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. I hope everyone had a lovely Christmas with, their loved ones, whoever you could be with. It's been a strange year. I miss my family more than anything. I'll say that much. I on FaceTime every day, and it's not easy. But thankfully, we've all remained COVID free, and trying to stay as healthy as possible. So here's hoping 2021 is a little bit better.
Yeah, it'll take a little time, but I think it will be. I think by the end of the year, we'll be looking back on this as crazy as it's been, and it'll feel more normal. It won't be completely normal, but it'll feel more normal at least.
I saw a tweet a while ago that someone said at some point in a few years you're just going to put your hand in your pocket. The way sometimes you find an extra $1 in your pocket or you find something that you didn't realize was there. Someone is going to pull out a mask and be like,
if you haven't seen it, have you seen the Milan video that they did?
No.
Okay, you got to go look for that when you sign off. It was a great video about how crazy of a year it's been, and it's like a time capsule box of 2020 in a garage, and they go through all the craziness. It's a really moving video. Milan knocked it out of the park with this, so go check that out. Highly recommend.
The club, AC Milan.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, really good video. Definitely recommended.
It feels like 15 years ago. We sat having dinner, myself, Dan, and Jill, and I'll never forget. Like, we were talking about it, and I said, this thing is going to be really bad, and Dan was saying, we'll figure it out, it's going to be fine. And, my brother-in-law is works with finance companies. He's in touch with the World Health Organization a lot. So he had been kind of saying to us, look, this projections are terrible. They're really, really bad. This is, and I didn't want to be all doom and gloom, but it's like, I'm hearing it from the World Health Organization, essentially, that this is set to be something like we've never experienced before. And that's exactly what it's been. So, thinking of anybody that may have lost anybody, it's just a heart-wrenching time. Yeah, and it's gonna be rocky for a little bit, but I think the light at the end of the tunnel, we can actually see it now. At least, I'm telling myself that. I think we can with the vaccines, and I think we can see where, okay, we can get through it, but we've got to be vigilant right now and get through this hard portion because it's gonna be hard. Maybe Atlanta United will go the next 25 years without missing the playoffs. And it'll be an easy trivia question. What year did Atlanta United miss out on the playoffs? Like 2020, simple.
It's a weird year. I mean, we were wearing masks. It was nuts. I'll take that. I'll take that trade-off.
Well, cheers, Jason. Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, thanks for the time. We'll get you back on more often when we can slot you in. You doing CNN? You doing La Liga stuff? You doing ICC stuff this week? You're going to be pretty busy, right?
Yeah, back on CNN in the morning. It's live from London, essentially. It's a London show, but I'll be in my basement in Roswell, Georgia. And I've got it's I've gotten very used to working from home in a way. Like, I'll be suited and booted, but really I'm wearing my jammies and my old man slippers underneath. And the shows for La Liga and for ICC, they're with the green screen, and it's from the basement. Sirius XM, I've got all my equipment here next to me, and it's from this basement too. So the only job would be Atlanta United. That would mean getting in the car and traveling. We got a leased car back in March, and I think we've used like 4,000 miles.
I know, I've put like no miles on my car this year. It's been crazy.
Yeah, so it's been a while, but I'm very thankful for my wife and my little fella, and now a little girl on the way. So a lot to be thankful for, and roll on 2021.
Yep, we'll get there. Thanks for the time, man. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Jason.
Enjoy the hike.
Yeah, take care.
Yeah.
Thanks a mil.
See you soon. That was Kevin Egan. Thanks to Kevin for the time. Make sure you're following him, Kev _ Egan. And just a second, we'll have video back up for our final segment. Mateo working hard. There we go. We'll leave Kevin's smiling face, and we'll go here. All right. Final questions from you guys as we wrap up. We're not going 3 hours. It's not happening. Thank you to Jarrett. Thank you to Kevin for taking some time to talk to us this morning. Really fun conversations with both of them on a lot of different stuff. Some things to keep in mind for today as you're watching right now, Crystal Palace and Leicester. Scoreless going into the second half. You've got Chelsea and Aston Villa later today. You've got some games from Argentina later today. We talked about it just a little bit there. Jurgens Montenegro from Alajuelense taking pictures in Atlanta. He is represented by an agency based here in Atlanta, but it was reported very, very clearly that he would be coming to Atlanta United on loan with an option to buy. 6 goals in 20 games last season, part of a league title winning team at Alajuelense this past season, one of the promising young players out of Costa Rica. So keep an eye on anything related to that, but he's liked tweets involving soccer down here, so that's kind of cool. Thank you, Ricky Ricardo. Some other news around the league, because it's starting to pick up. Lee Nguyen has left MLS. He has signed with Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. He's a legend, an icon. He played in the Vietnamese league before, so this is actually a pretty big deal, and he's probably going to be making a good bit of money to go there and be a focal point. So good for Lee Nguyen. One of my favorite players, a player that I would have loved to have seen more with the national team. Such a skilled, talented player. I would have loved to have seen more opportunities for him. Ecuadorian left winger Joao Rojas, 31 years old, is linked with a move to MLS or Liga MX. Nico Moreno of Pulso Sports says that an Eastern Conference team, don't know who, has made an offer for Rojas. He is at Sao Paulo in Brazil right now. More likely to go to Mexico, though. And he was linked to Seattle at one point. Moreno, who's based in Seattle, says the Sounders are not in the mix for Joao Rojas. That it's an Eastern Conference team, but it's more likely he ends up in Liga MX. Brian Reynolds, that saga continues. Club Brugge is, and I'm not doing John's shtick. I don't do other people's gimmicks. I'm not doing it. Brugge's still in the mix. Cagliari has come into the mix in a combination with Juventus, which is interesting. This is being reported in the Italian media, that he would go to Cagliari in the January window, and then Juventus would acquire him on a permanent deal at the end of the season, so in the summer. So a little bit of moving parts here. Roma is still in the mix, and Roma has Mataflo. That was what everybody's reporting about Joao Rojas. Maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe other people have got it wrong, and I'm recycling bad rumors. Let me know what you're seeing, Mataflo, por favor, because you are our Ecuadorian correspondent. Roma and Brian Reynolds, 7.5 million euro bid is on the table, but they haven't agreed with the agent. And according to Gazzetta dello Sport, the agent is demanding high commissions, which is an interesting thing to be reported in the Italian media. The Reynolds thing to Cagliari seems like a temporary fix, and he would go there and I guess play. I guess they need it. I don't know the full relationship between Juventus and Cagliari, but it would be temporary. He would be at Juve in the summer. So we'll see, but the numbers are getting to a point that I think he goes. I just can't see Club Brugge paying that kind of money. If you're going to get this kind of money out of an Italian club, I think that's where he ends up, and maybe it's a temporary move. You've got rumors out of Seattle that Gustav Svensson could be leaving and going back to China. He played for Guangzhou. It's now Guangzhou City. They are linked by Titan Sports out of China as signing Gustav Svensson back. Played for them in 2016 as a key player. Probably somewhat lucrative, although they have bumped down the numbers you can pay foreign players, and you have a salary cap now in China. That will make it really, really interesting. Lincoln, a 20-year-old Brazilian at Flamengo, his name has come up quite a bit with different clubs. According to Brazilian journalist Vene Casagrande, Lincoln could be in the mix for Vancouver signing him. That would be a surprise. I have to see about that. I'm not so sure about Vancouver. I just don't know what Vancouver's up to. I'm a little confused. Columbus could be losing Chris Caden, who's been a backup to Harrison Offal. Rumors in the Scottish Daily Record that Hibs is interested in bringing him in. Oxford United is interested in bringing him back. He spent last year on loan, or 2019 on loan there. He didn't play that much in Columbus. He's currently in Scotland for the holidays. Hibs is a very interesting team that could make an offer that would be worth it for Columbus. But Offal is getting into his mid-30s. He's getting into his mid-30s. Like, do you want to have that backup in place right now? Or do you want to risk it? I don't know. I'm a little baffled by that because I thought that's why they brought him back in. But Offal had another great year. We've got a little bit of this. And this is from at Man City. Manchester City's game at Everton has been postponed. This is a club statement from Manchester City. Evening's fixture has been postponed after the latest round of COVID-19 testing. Manchester City returned a number of positive cases in addition to the 4 already reported on Christmas Day. With the security of the bubble compromised, there posed a risk that the virus could spread further amongst the squad, the staff, and potentially beyond. Based on the strong medical advice, the Premier League, in consultation with both clubs, have decided to postpone the fixture. So Manchester City and Everton not going ahead today. That came out just about 8 minutes ago from Manchester City and their official statement. Not good. Newcastle just went through this. Manchester City now going through it. 4 positives before and now more, and that is a problem. So, yes, it is more about, as they said in their statement, which I think was very well put, it's about more spread within the squad and their own staff. So that's a huge problem. We'll see. We will see how they handle this. You've only had a couple of incidents like this in the Premier League since they restarted the end of last season and now into this one. They have to be incredibly careful. They don't have a lot of time to backload the schedule at the end, which is going to make this difficult with all of the competitions coming on later. Things could get very tricky. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. If it becomes a trend across the league, they're going to have to think. They're going to have to think about some different things. It hasn't yet, and I know they don't want to shut anything down, and I don't know if they need to just yet, but, man, we'll have to see where this goes. We'll have to see where this goes, so stay tuned there. Tofko, get into your point, too. I've been bouncing back and forth between the Twitters, but, we had a long conversation. We were digging into a lot of different stuff, so I'm trying to get caught up before we wrap up. So, Tofko, I got you. Give me a minute or two here. Two other bits of MLS news to keep an eye on. Luis Amarilla from Minnesota Loan with an option to buy from Vélez Sarsfield. That loan ends at the end of the year. Amaria spoke to a Vélez radio program and said he'd like to have an opportunity at Vélez to prove himself, but he also said that Minnesota would like to continue with him. Where is he going to end up? If Minnesota doesn't get him back, they're going to have to go get a number 9, and you're back into the market. Real Salt Lake, the sale of Real Salt Lake. It has been continuing on with conversations. Alex Vihar had a big update at the Salt Lake Tribune. It looks like the league is going to take the leadership point on this on January 8th. They take over the sale process if Deloy Hansen can't find a buyer before January 8th. Don Garber has said that it's more likely that the league takes that over. Garber's also said there's no plans to move RSL out of the Salt Lake City market. That has worried people. It's also worried people that now Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith, back in September, toured the facilities, has definitely shown interest, but a meeting with him and Hansen didn't go very well. There were questions when Smith recently purchased the Utah Jazz if he was still interested in RSL. A source told Alex Vihar that he is still interested. The source wanted to be anonymous to discuss a private sales process. Smith approached Gail Miller, who's the former majority owner of the Jazz, about working together to buy RSL. Miller wasn't interested in that. So Smith said, when asked about buying RSL, even after buying the Jazz, I think that would be great. Now he wants the sale process to be as smooth as it was with the Jazz. Sounds like maybe that wasn't going to be the case with Deloy Hansen. Maybe Smith is waiting it out for the league to take things over. Maybe that's where it is. 2 other local groups were interested. They've fallen out of the race. There is an international ownership group that has recently emerged, according to Vehar and his source. The group is already interested in soccer, looking to establish a presence in the United States. They have met at least once with Hansen. My gut feeling is that nothing happens until January 8th. This international group would be the one that might try to get in before that and buy it directly from Hansen. Otherwise, I think Smith buys it from MLS on January 8th. And I don't know how the financials go down between the league and Deloy Hansen and all that. I just want to get some certainty over what RSL is going to look like, because they're all on hold right now. I mean, they can't go out and recruit big players. They can't look at designated players. They can't look at these things until they know what their ownership situation is going to be. So they're in a holding pattern. The longer it goes, the more challenging 2021 is for RSL. Mentioned the interview with Dietrich Mateschitz with Red Bull and how he didn't mention New York. This situation with Kaku, according to AM in Mexico, his contract ends on December 31st. There is an extension option on it that is in favor of the club, means a Red Bull's option to extend it. Kaku was reportedly verbally notified of the contract extension, not in a legal manner. This gets into a situation that MLS has had some problems with, where players have fought against these options. And MLS doesn't want to get into a legal fight here. There's no benefit to them, for them to do it, other than keeping a player who doesn't want to be here. So why are you going to do that? There's no benefit for the Red Bulls for holding out. Tudor Rockman, with a great description of this on his Twitter account, they're not going to make enough to get allocation money out of the deal. They're not going to recoup all that they spent on salary and on the original transfer. The decision is this. They can keep him and expect him to play well. He hasn't really done that, and I don't think he really wants to be there anymore. So that's probably not going to happen. They can trigger the option with the intention of selling him for something just to recoup the cash, but you're probably going to have to fight him and take him to court, go to CAS, go to FIFA, whatever, on this. Or you just let him walk and let him open up the DP spot. You want to get something out of it, and you're going to try to, but you shouldn't draw this out if you're the Red Bulls. You're not going to gain from it. You're either going to have an unhappy player, or you're going to have to fight over getting some kind of transfer fee, which teams are going to be reluctant to pay because they think they can get him on a free. So I don't know. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I don't think he's there next year, and I don't know what they get for him. We'll have to see. But they need to do something quickly and move on. The New York Red Bulls have to figure out what they're going to be, and I don't really know what the answer is to that. It sounds like ownership doesn't really care too much about the organization. If they become an organization that just develops local talent, develops young talent, I think they can find a niche for that, and they can move guys on like your Tyler Adams on to your European clubs. I don't think they're ever going to spend big money while the Red Bulls own the club here. I just don't see it. So you're going to have to develop from within. And you're going to get some young prospects out of South America that wouldn't go to Bragantino now that you might be able to bring into New York and then flip over to the European teams. But that's about it. You're going to have to develop from within. And we'll see if that was the idea with bringing in Gerhard Struber to do that. I'll be interested to see how all this plays out for the New York Red Bulls. News this morning, Brad Stuver, backup goalkeeper, has gone to Austin. Now they have 3 goalkeepers, so they're all set on goalkeepers. Still very positive about what Austin has done with the way they've built their team. Still incredibly positive with that. Okay, let me finish with your questions. If you guys have any on the Twitch pitch, throw them into the chat section. We'll get to them there. If you have any questions you want to throw on Twitter, tag me at Longshoe, tag OSG Nelson for him to look at it later, tag Soccer Down Here, tag OSG Nelson just to bug him. How about that? Let him know what your rating was on his read, by the way. He's got another one tomorrow. They're all different. He did 3 different reads. I chopped them up. There's 3 different ones. He really was looking out for you guys. But tag him. Watch on GPB. You can watch those games on Twitter as well. Luckily, the weather's not too bad for John outside today. Hopefully, it holds up over these next 3 days. But if you have a question as we wrap up, you can also tweet at Soccer Down Here. I will check both. Let me get to Tafka's. We were talking about storylines and why the Premier League and Liga MX are the 2 biggest leagues in the United States. Tafka said the need for storylines in MLS in comparison to other leagues is an issue of, quote, MLS clubs are generally only focused on the singular domestic success of MLS Cup, and failure is often just a meh shoulder shrug reaction and the there's always next year trope. There needs to be real benefits and consequences for the manner in which a team performs. Of course, Tafka's hybrid pro-rel model would have addressed this. The CONCACAF qualification should carry substantial financial incentive. I'm fine with that. Same thing with the Open Cup. Fine with that. Profit sharing tied to performance. No problem with that. It would make a ton of sense in this kind of scenario, right? Where you don't have the relegation factor into it. The profit share should be tied to performance. And some of the profit sharing in England is tied to performance. It factors in. It matters. And if you're not going to have relegation in it, tie more of it to performance. I'm fine with that. So if you want to divide the money up and divide it up how you do it. I'm in with that. That makes total sense, Tafka. Totally in with that. The hybrid pro-rel part, I think, would be confusing, and I just don't see MLS going to a pro-rel model anytime soon because of the way the league's structured. I still think more leagues worldwide are going to go closer to MLS than MLS is going to go to them. I really, truly do. But you do need to make, as we're going to get into a results versus style debate here in Atlanta. It's going to happen. It's already starting to happen before we've even seen anything. It's going to happen. Results do matter. And they need to matter because that's what sells a team to the masses. Those of us who get into the style questions and the style debates, yeah, it's a factor. It's absolutely a factor. But there's got to be results to go along with the style to attract the interest from more casual fans and to create these storylines. I mean, we can sit here for 2 hours and talk about our favorite 6 and talk about what we like about the 6 position and talk about how the 6 interacts with the 8. And we can talk about the vertical columns in the field and how we need players here and how you can move this guy over there. We can do all that. Is that going to fly in a mainstream sports program? Is that going to fly in a mainstream newspaper? No. So there has to be something to go along with it. But the consequences of results are a big thing. And I do think coaches are going to be pushed to get results faster in MLS than they have in the past. And the financial incentive, totally on board with it. Totally on board with it. And all the competitions have to be treated as important as well. The Open Cup, CONCACAF, all have to be looked at as important things. I was glad to see LAFC's run be treated as important. Others need to be too. even in the first rounds, it needs to be a bigger deal. We need to keep working on this. We're going to do it, obviously, but it needs to also get crossed over into the mainstream. The clubs need to do a better job at telling these stories. The ones that do, I think, get that coverage. The ones that don't struggle for it. So we will see it. Okay, as I pull up more questions on the Twitters, let me get to you guys here on the Twitch pitch and work backwards. Sean Vergara says, what players on the current Atlanta United roster aren't on the roster to start the season? Says Adam John seems like he's on the way out. He's under contract, so you're going to have to trade or sell him. That's going to be a necessity in that because he's under contract. He gives you something different. You're going to see much of him? Probably not. If Joseph's healthy, he's going to play the bulk of the minutes. But he gives you something different. Can you get that with Jackson Conway? Yeah, I think you can. I think Jackson Conway can be that kind of a forward, and he can give you something different as well. He gives you a little more. He gives you the ability to play wide. It's a different way of playing wide than an Eric Lopez would, or than a potentially a Montenegro would. But he gives you that possibility. Whereas Adam John is a true number 9, old school, kind of target forward. Sometimes you want that difference because you're going to need it from time to time. I think that could be useful. I don't know. I guess when I look at who might not be here that's currently on the roster, I keep going back to the central midfield because I still think you do need a number 6 for this team to take off the way that they can. And that would mean one more player in a position group that has a lot of players already. And I don't know what the solution is to that. It might not be a solution straight away because you've got the space to add players. You don't have to go and move somebody to add somebody. You can add somebody. And I think they've got the financial wherewithal to add somebody. We do have questions about MLS roster rules, of course. We always have those. But you could go add somebody if you want to. You don't have to move a player to add a player. That's the key. Would you want to move a player because you're going to have some players you don't see a whole lot of time? Yeah, if you can, you're going to want to do that. But you don't have to for this team to be as good as they possibly can be next year. That's my opinion anyway. So I don't know if there's a must that anybody has to move. I think guys might not see as much playing time because of additions. Absolutely. But you're going to play with the contracts and try to do the best you can with it. And where there's guys who could be an asset to somebody else, you'll move them if you don't need them as much. That's going to be the balance. Domer, we're not going 3 hours. We're about to wrap up because you guys are not going to keep sending me questions, or I'm just going to start ignoring them, actually. John's answering messages on Twitter. That's good. That's very good. I don't think his games start today until a little bit later. I think it's tomorrow and Wednesday where he really gets going early on. So definitely harass him on Twitter. He's a big boy. He can turn his phone off. He can turn his notifications off. Well, he should be able to. Well, it's John. Technology might be a problem, so maybe don't harass him during the games. You can watch him on your GPB affiliate locally, and you can also watch him on Twitter. I believe they're on Facebook as well. He will be on the sideline. Let's see here. Soccer for Good OG. Which guy pinged a fan with the ball? I don't remember that. There's been a few of those. Kaku. Yes, it was Kaku. That is correct. Yes. That was very bad. Kaku hasn't seemed happy at Red Bulls. Interesting, Modaflow. Yes, then some of the reports have been wrong because I did not go into the dual Joao Rojas's. There is a younger Rojas currently with Emelec who has an offer from Spain, Mexico, and the United States. He doesn't want to leave for 6 months, according to Monteflo. There is another Joao Rojas, Joao Robin Rojas, who is the older one who played for Emelec. I can see where the confusion would be. Cruz Azul, he's currently with Sao Paulo. The reports were originally for the younger Rojas. I think the reporting is getting confused then. Let me see which one MLS said. See, this is why it's good to have El Monteflo hanging out so we can clean these things up. I think they fixed it, or they mixed up the two things. Yeah, they fixed it now. Maybe it was Nico Moreno who had the wrong one then. Very interesting. So it is the younger Rojas, the 22, 23-year-old, 23 now, who joined MLEC in February of 2018. Good times. Good times. Thank you, Modiflow, for cleaning that up. I think it was Nico Moreno then who had it, or MLS changed theirs. I think they both were doing different things. Weird. Weird times. Josimar Rojas is the one that is linked with MLS, but it sounds like he's going to go to Mexico instead. No, we're not going 259 Pussing. We're not doing that either. That's not happening either. ATL UTD Pup is tweeting this morning. I saw that Leganés has had the release clause paid on El Super Pepino. He's getting Braithwaited, so they're going to lose Super Pepino. Are we going to lose Spike? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Abby, is this what you're trying to tell me, that we're going to lose Spike? Has a transfer fee been paid for Spike? Life is all about balance. Spike's got talent. I like Spike. A lot of people were mean about Spike. Okay, good. We can't lose Spike. We didn't even get a good year with Spike. The pandemic kind of affected it all with Spike. It was really unfair for Spike. He didn't get all of his training and crowds and all those kinds of things. So he might need a little more work. Hopefully Spike gets to stick around a little bit longer. We were going to have Spike on a Countdown to Kickoff show, and we didn't get to do that. Very sad. Sixth Gear says, why would Messi come to the U.S. before England? I don't think he cares about going to England, to be perfectly honest. Like, that's an appeal for a lot of people. I don't think Messi cares. Messi's had everything at Barcelona. What's going to be better than Barcelona for him? I don't think there's anything at all. I mean, as much as he likes Pep, I don't think he goes to Manchester City just because it's Manchester City. He doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. PSG, I mean, they could pay him a ton of money, but would he want to go there? Does Messi want to be a mercenary? I got the sense from his interview that he does not. I do not think he wants to go and just be a mercenary. So I don't think he comes to the U.S. anytime soon. People trying to make that thing like he was going to come this summer, it's not happening. He's not going anywhere like that. And I'll say like that about the U.S. or about Newell's Old Boys, which is another one. He said he'd love to play at Newell's someday because he never got a chance to. He's not doing any of those until after the 22 World Cup. Everything for him is going to be based on trying to win the World Cup in 2022. Everything. His whole life will be based on that. And he's going to put everything into it. He's going to want to be in as good a form as he can be. He's also going to want to be happy. And he's obviously happy at Barcelona. As he said, he's spent more of his life in Barcelona than he has in Rosario. His kids were born there. His kids have grown up there. You know, his family is very, very important to him. I think if it is Joan Laporta, Messi has a good relationship with him if he becomes the president, so I wouldn't expect there to be a problem if Laporta wins the presidency. Victor Font has talked about wanting to keep Messi, so I don't think there'd be a problem there. I just don't see anything there at all. Burn, you're going to have to throw that in the Discord. Burn's trying to distract us again, as usual. If you guys are subscribers to the Twitch Pitch or subscribers on Patreon and you have not gotten your invite to the Discord, please let me know so I can get that taken care of. I think Twitch has been a little slow on the automatic invites. Patreon's been taking care of its business on this, so that's good to see. That is not Mateo's responsibility. I will fix that if need be. So send me a message and let me know. The Discord will start to get more active. It kind of slowed down with the holidays, but it'll get more active as there's games, as there's news, as there's rumors, as there's debates about the best 11 all-time Argentine players for Barca or Real Madrid, as Bernd wants to do. That'll be a Discord thing. We'll get into it. But yeah, if you're a subscriber and you support the show, we'll get you into the Discord. Just give me a heads up. Yeah, Pacine, I'm with you. Like, Messi made it clear that the U.S. was not anything right now, anything immediate. I don't think it's even on the table until the summer of 2023 because of just the way the World Cup's going to fall. The World Cup's going to fall in the middle of the 22-23 season. I think he plays that season. I think he stays at Barcelona. I would really go, and I've said this for a while, I've felt like that could be in play if he got what he wanted out of it. I think with the potential presidents, he'll be happy there. He will stay at Barcelona, in my opinion. And he will stay there for sure through 23. And then could 18 months in MLS come up? Possibly. Miami would seem to be the team because of, I think he does have property in Miami. They would seem to be the team that would make the most sense for him. Obviously the City situation could come into play potentially if there is something with Manchester City, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's Miami. I think maybe a 6-month stint at Newell's as he retires. And then he said he wants to be a sporting director. He doesn't want to be a coach. He wants to be a sporting director, which would be fascinating. If he's in 23 and comes to MLS, I think he can still contribute, Steve. I don't think it would be a bad thing for him to be here at that point. I think he could be just fine. You'd have to build a team around him. You'd have to protect him. You'd have to have holding midfielders behind him to do the defensive work. You'd probably play him as a free 10 in that kind of scenario, so he becomes more of a playmaker. But he could still be incredibly valuable at that point. He is one of the few players that I would still go after in a big way at that age. He's that important in the game's history. You'd love to have him here in this league if you could. Even at that age, I would do it. I would absolutely take him at that point, and Miami absolutely would at that point. But we'll see. I just don't think it happens before the 23 season. And I think even that is very, I don't want to say very unlikely, far less likely after this interview. I thought he made his point very clear about how important Barcelona is to him, and I think he wants to fix it before he goes. I really, really do. He's growing up in front of us a little bit, Lionel Messi. Alex Bassine says favorite part of the interview was Leo's self-awareness about being shy and being timid off the pitch. He is becoming more of a leader because he has to be. His reactions to Maradona's death, his reactions, to what's going on at Barcelona, he's had to step up, and I think he's going to continue to do so. And I think he's going to continue to do it at Barcelona. I really do. I don't see the PSG thing happening. City is more likely than PSG for me because of the relationship with Pep. But it would take more of a breakdown at Barcelona for that to happen. I just don't think he wants to leave Barca. I really don't. One other thing about Lionel Messi before we go. I talked about it on the Twitch pitch just a little bit. Santos is being a bunch of jerks about this. Is that fair? I think it is. I see a couple questions on the Twitch pitch. We'll tackle them right before we go. Santos is saying this weekend that Lionel Messi has not broken Pele's goal-scoring record for a single club. He'll have to score 448 more goals for Barcelona to do that. They issued a statement about this. He scored his 644th goal for Barcelona last week. Pele scored 643 official goals for Santos. Santos released a statement Sunday saying the official tally at Santos stands at 1,091. 448 goals scored in friendly matches should be counted. Santos claimed that a goal against Transvaal from Suriname has the same value as a goal scored at Real Madrid in the middle of the Santiago Bernabeu. So one thing, Santos is really being a jerk about this. There's no way around it. Because they're not doing any tally of friendly goals that Messi scored. So it's not that anybody said that the goals scored in friendlies didn't count. The reporting has always been official goals. What are official goals? In competition, not in a friendly. So if you're going to do this, then you better count up Messi's friendly goals if you're going to play this little silly game, Santos. But otherwise, you're trying to create something. You're saying the argument of some analysts is that so many of these 448 goals scored in friendly matches were faced with weak opponents, such as smaller regional teams. Even so, the matches were played in official uniforms with the official rules of the game and with a score sheet. We have to remember that clubs could only play friendly matches with the endorsement of regional and national federations, one of the rules imposed by FIFA, the organizer of world football. Taking subjective attributes into account, such as the weakness of opponents, is not ideal for compiling statistical data. The numbers are absolute. Yeah, the numbers are absolute. It's an official competition. That's what everybody said. No analysts have argued that those goals were scored in friendlies and they don't matter or anything like that. Nobody's counting them because they weren't official goals, because they weren't in competition. Santos, stop it. Stop it. Stop being stupid about this. Even Pelé praised Lionel Messi. There's no need to be doing this nonsense. Santos, you're looking foolish. You're just looking foolish in this. And you're about to play Boca Juniors in the Copa Libertadores, and now everybody is rooting for Boca against you because you're being really, really silly. Okay. Sixth Gear, Sean wants a quick hit on Spurs, wants to feel good about the awkward results lately. I can't help you with the awkward results lately because they're pretty awkward. I think there is a fatigue issue. I mean, Jose Mourinho said they didn't have the initiative yesterday. They looked flat. They looked tired. They looked like they were coasting a bit. They've got to. They can't do that. I think they're talented. I do like generally what Jose has done with them, but that was 2 points thrown away yesterday, and we'll have to see what they do to bridge this gap because that's not good enough. And I think the Premier League, as I said earlier, this is the most interesting the Premier League has been in a long time because of the race, and Tottenham is in the race. You can't throw away points like that. You just can't. So what do they have coming up after some dodgy form lately? They get a home game against Fulham. They should win that. They get a home game against Leeds. They should win that. That's going to be difficult. Leeds is going to make them work for it. We'll see how Leeds is feeling on January 2nd because the style that they have is going to take more out of them, in my opinion. Are they going to be able to dial it back up again on short rest? I think Tottenham should have 6 points out of their next two matches. If they don't, there's a problem. And it should be looked at as a problem. There's a lot of potential problems in England right now. There's a lot of very interesting conversations going on in England right now on the coaching side. I think Thomas Tuchel is going to be looming over everybody because he is the one that Pochettino was only linked to Manchester United. He wasn't going to go to another London club. But now, anybody who stumbles in England out of Manchester United, out of Chelsea, out of Arsenal, out of Tottenham, maybe, Thomas Tuchel's name's going to come up. It's going to get fascinating. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Max Allegri's name should have come up, but it hasn't for whatever reason. Ricky with the final question of the day. Is Montenegro's loan, does it have a purchase option? High TAM, young designated player, a U22 initiative. It reportedly would be a loan with a purchase option. I would assume, based off valuations and based off what we know about players coming from Costa Rica, it would not be a designated player move. It would be a TAM level move, maybe not even into a big TAM move. You could probably buy it down with allocation money. It could fall under the U22 initiative, depending on how all that looks, but that's a little confusing as to the parameters of it. Just because of his age, it could fall there. As you see, sometimes guys are designated players until they need to be bought down, and Marcelino Moreno would be one that could be in that. He's very close. But you'll see some teams with a player who's making $650,000 who is listed as a designated player because it saves them a little bit of cap space on that money. They don't need to buy him down yet until they have another DP coming in. So Jason Heinley, no, we're leaving. I'm leaving. There's no we. It's just me. I'm out. I've been talking for 2 hours and 38 minutes. I'm gone. We'll talk more about this on Soccer Over There tonight, and I'll have some help. Jarrett Smith will be chiming in. Nick Alifi will be back. We'll talk about all the European action from today. We'll talk about everything in Spain. We'll talk about everything in England. We'll talk about the Manchester City game being postponed. All of that tonight at 7 o'clock on the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere, on the Soccer Down Here app, also on soccerdownhere.net. Thanks for hanging out this morning. Thanks again to Jarrett_Smith on Twitter, Kev_Egan on Twitter for hanging out with me today. We'll be back tomorrow morning for the show, but we'll be back for Soccer Over There later. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Mucha plata, y'all.